Chapter 412. Fei Qianqiang suddenly felt goosebumps all over his body. How big a game of chess is Listen playing? Is he going to swallow the entire Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce? Fei Qianqiang had been listening to the conversation between Listen and the masked youth. He vaguely knew that the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's future business direction was also high-end luxury resources. This would lead to a direct confrontation with the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce. The youth with the strange mask delivered hundreds of luxury items to the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce every day. Even if the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce sold everything they had, how long could they resist? Fei Qianqiang felt that he was many times stronger than Listen in terms of strength. However, no matter how strong he was, he could only protect himself in the face of the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce. However, when Listen's strategy was used, it could turn the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce from a high position into rubble. At that moment, Listen asked, "What's the Zheng family's attitude toward the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce?" Fei Qianqiang was thinking carefully about Listen's question. At this moment, an unusually old voice rang out in the room. "The Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce is just a dog that the Zheng family fed with 2 bones. What kind of attitude do you think they have?" Listen's eyes widened instantly as he stared at the shadow that had suddenly appeared in the room. The black shadow slowly condensed into a strange, ferocious tiger that was entirely black. This strange tiger was not very big, only 2 meters long, but it had 3 black hole-like eyes. Its entire body was covered with body armor that usually belonged to insect species Feis. The most surprising thing was that behind this strange black tiger's tail, there was a thick scorpion tail that was even longer than its body. The hooked needles of the scorpion tail were all wrapped up in black air waves, making it hard to see. One could only faintly see a sharp, cold glint flickering within this black wave of qi. On the back of the strange tiger stood an old man whose body was almost bent at a right angle. The old man's hand that was holding the walking stick seemed to be trembling a bit, but the old man's legs that were standing on vicious tiger's back were extremely steady. Feeling the aura rising from the old man's body, and comparing it to the aura rising from Fei Qianqiang's body during the day, Listen could sense that the hunchbacked elder's aura was clearly higher than Fei Qianqiang's. Listen quickly calmed himself down and said, "Since you are so familiar with the Zheng clan, you must be from the Zheng clan. I wonder what the people of the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce will think if they find out that the Zheng family treats the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce like a dog." As he listened, Fei Qianqiang felt speechless to the extreme. Fei Qianqiang was not a superstitious person, but he couldn't help but want to find someone to do some divination for him. Was he the reincarnation of the god of misfortune? Why did he encounter so many misfortune in a single day? The circle of black shadows on the strange tiger beneath the stooped old man was clearly the embryonic form of a domain. Although it had yet to truly form a domain, it was already infinitely close. This meant that this stooped old man was a true peak king stage powerhouse. Even if Fei Qianqiang was at his peak, he wouldn't be able to block more than a few moves from a peak king. Moreover, his main Fei, the blood-toothed cricket, had been stripped of its willpower rune and had fallen from a fantasy breed. The hunchbacked old man looked at Listen with a trace of regret in his eyes. He then glanced at Fei Qianqiang and said, "What the dogs of the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce think has nothing to do with me. If the dogs are disobedient, they will be obedient after some training. It's just that our Zheng family has trained our dogs very well, unlike the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce, who trained their own dogs to rebel. You have to be careful. You can't tame a rebellious dog no matter how you train it." As he spoke, the hunchbacked old man, Elder Niu, who was next to young Master Zheng, was somewhat puzzled. The Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce was just an empty shell. How blind was Fei Qianqiang to choose to betray the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce and help the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce? Could it be because of the news that Listen had released that the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce had found the support of a major faction? If that was the case, would the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce have been suppressed so badly by the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce? Does this Fei Qianqiang have a pig brain? Did he really believe it? If he told Fei Qianqiong that he could quickly comprehend the willpower rune by burying him in the ground, he wouldn't be able to do so. Would Fei Qianqiong bury himself alive and suffocate to death? When Fei Qianqiong heard the words of the stooped old man, he suddenly felt a little sad. If he had not chosen to live between life and death, he would not have used the willpower rune to swear to become Lisan's servant and betray the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce. He had gone through ups and downs for the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce for so many years. He had both merits and hard work. In terms of contribution and hard work, his contribution and hard work were definitely above Bai Qingxiong's. But he had to suffer Bai Qinghu's suspicions at every turn, and he had to endure Bai Qingxiong's impetuous bare brain. In the end, in the eyes of the Zheng family, he was just a dog of the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce. This showed Bai Qinghu and Bai Qingxiong's attitude towards him when facing the Zheng family. At that moment, Fei Qianqiong heard Lisan say, "Both the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce and the Zheng family love dogs so much. I guess your surname isn't Zheng, right?" Lisan's words immediately caused Elder Niu's expression to change, and the regret in his eyes turned gloomy. Lisan continued. "My Lisan and the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce never keep dogs. Since Fei Qianqiong has joined the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce, he will be one of us in the future." Fei Qianqiong took a deep look at Lisan before taking a step forward and summoning his two Feis. After summoning the Diamond 2/Fantasy 2 mind-controlling Silkworm Goo and the Diamond 4/Legend Blood-Toothed Cricket, Fei Qianqiong assumed a defensive posture in front of Lisan. Elder Niu tapped the dark-eyed scorpion tiger's back with his walking stick. The dark-eyed scorpion tiger could feel the anger in its owner's heart and immediately let out a violent roar. The dark-eyed scorpion tiger's violent roar did not make any sound. Only a strange dark energy ripple swept toward Fei Qianqiong and Lisan. Fei Qianqiong immediately shouted, "Mind-controlling Silkworm Goo, Goo Poison Whip Touch. Blood-Toothed Cricket, Chirping Sound." Following Fei Qianqiong's shout, the Diamond 2/Fantasy 2 mind-controlling Silkworm Goo shot out a long whip-like light shadow from the antennae on its head. The long whip-light shadow smashed into the dark energy ripples, directly scattering a part of the dark energy ripples. However, the dark energy ripples reverted back to their original state in the next moment. Immediately afterward, the blood-toothed cricket let out a violent buzzing sound, and layers of invisible and intangible violent sound waves collided with the dark energy ripple. However, when these violent sound waves collided with the strange dark energy ripple, it was like throwing a stone into a stream. Although it made the dark energy ripple, it could not stop the dark energy ripple from rushing toward the two of them. Third update seeking monthly and recommendation votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 413. Fei Qianqiong could not help but sigh in his heart. The blood-toothed cricket had always been his main Fei. However, it had been deprived of its willpower rune and turned from a Fantasy 3 Fei into an ordinary Fei. Even if he still had the Diamond 2/Fantasy 2 mind-controlling Silkworm Goo, it could not even reach 30% of its previous strength in battle. Fei Qianqiong hurriedly injected a large amount of spiritual power into the mind-controlling Silkworm Goo. As the mind-controlling Silkworm Goo injected spiritual power into Fei Qianqiong, its body quickly lit up with a reddish-gold luster. Silky and dazzling reddish-gold threads were quickly spat out of the mind-controlling Silkworm Goo's body. Finally, these threads were tightly entangled, forming 3 reddish-gold ribbons covered with dark red spots. Mind-controlling Silkworm Goo, block in front of me with 1 heart wall ribbon and 2 in front of Lisan. When the mind-controlling Silkworm Goo heard its master's words, it was obviously a little hesitant. It did not understand why its contractor wanted to protect a member of the group of humans who had attacked it and the blood-toothed cricket during the day. However, the mind-controlling Silkworm Goo was absolutely obedient to Fei Qianqiong in battle. Therefore, the mind-controlling Silkworm Goo didn't hesitate at all to block in front of Lisan with 2 heart wall ribbons and 1 in front of Fei Qianqiong. At that moment, the dark energy ripples had already rushed over. This dark energy ripples directly sent Fei Qianqiong and Lisan flying. However, due to the mind-controlling Silkworm Goo's heart wall ribbon's double protection, Lisan felt the blood in his body surge. However, because Fei Qianqiong lacked a layer of heart wall ribbon's protection, he was eroded by this dark energy ripples. Dark red blood flowed out of Fei Qianqiong's nose and dyed his white beard. Fei Qianqiong stood up and whispered to Listen, I'm going to risk my life. I'm prepared to risk my life. I don't dare to guarantee how long I can stall for. Summon your Fei and break the wall to escape. When Listen heard Fei Qianqiong's words, he had the same deep look as Fei Qianqiong had looked at him before. Listen also looked at Fei Qianqiong deeply. However, Listen did not plan to run. The king-class expert opposite Fei Qianqiong was obviously stronger than him. The stooped old Fei's casual roar produced the dark energy ripples, and Fei Qianqiong found it difficult to deal with it. Even if he ran, how would he be able to escape? The appearance of this stooped old man was different from the appearance of Fei Qianqiong. Fei Qianqiong had been discovered by the mother of Bloodbath, and he had shown up in anger because of its words. However, this old man had taken the initiative to appear after hearing his conversation with Fei Qianqiong. The reason this old man represented the Zhen clan and appeared here was probably to take his life. Although Listen did not intend to run, he still summoned his two Feis. One was the pain illusory fox that Listen had exchanged from Lin Yuan with source-type items and the day and night spirit silver. The other one was a crimson fox with 3 tails. The crimson fox's fur was extremely bewitching. Together with its 3 long fluffy tails, it looked like a 3-petaled begonia. At this moment, the hunchbacked old man, Old Nyo, said with some pity. Silver 7/fantasy I pain illusory fox and silver 3/fantasy I 3-tailed crimson fox. It seems that you have spent a lot of resources on yourself when you were in charge of the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. The Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce is such a small chamber of commerce. It must have spent a lot of effort to cultivate such a Fei combination like yours. Listen's expression did not change when he heard the hunchbacked old man's words, but he thought of his dead relatives. The Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce was now a small chamber of commerce, but it had not been in the past. He had been able to obtain such a high-quality Fei, the 3-tailed crimson fox, because of his family's unreserved devotion and love to him. Listen also understood the importance of his strength to the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's development. Therefore, after seeing Lin Yuan's exchange, Listen was willing to take out the source-type lifeforms to exchange for a bronze Fei that was suitable for him. Listen stepped forward and said to the hunchbacked old man standing on the dark crystal scorpion tiger, You should be here to kill me. Why don't I give you the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce, and you let Fei Qianqiong go? Fei Qianqiong's eyes widened as he looked at Listen in confusion. Listen raised his eyes at Fei Qianqiong and then at the Diamond 2/Fantasy 2 mind-controlling silkworm goo. Then, he took a step forward and looked at the hunchbacked old man standing on the dark gold scorpion tiger. Fei Qianqiong immediately understood Listen's meaning. Fei Qianqiong was Listen's servant. When he had sworn with the willpower rune, Fei Qianqiong had sworn a death oath for loyalty. If Listen died, Fei Qianqiong would also lose his life due to the willpower rune's backlash. Fei Qianqiong followed Listen's instructions and secretly injected all the spirit qi in his body into the mind-controlling silkworm goo without a trace. He was ready to wait for Listen's next instructions. Elder Nyo's mouth suddenly curled into a smile as if he was mocking. He looked at Listen with a scrutinizing and playful gaze. Are you showing off the deep relationship between a master and a servant in front of an old man like me? This is the first time I've seen a master say that he's willing to die for his dog. Hee, you guys don't have to do these little tricks. The flow of spiritual power is as conspicuous as a colorful ribbon in front of me. After saying that, Elder Nyo threw the walking stick in his hand up. The walking stick changed shape in mid-air and turned into a strange tadpole that was less than half the size of a palm. There were 7 to 8 supporting nerve tubes on both sides of the strange tadpole. Rows of densely packed compound eyes grew on every nerve tube. With this dark spirit eye tadpole around, any trace of spiritual power changes can't escape my perception. Dark spirit eye tadpole, use dark spirit seal. Just as the voice of the old man on the back of the dark-eyed scorpion tiger fell, the densely packed compound eyes on the nerves of the dark spirit-eye tadpole all flickered, and the light in the entire room immediately dimmed. Listen and Fei Qianqiong, who were injecting spiritual power into the mind-controlling silkworm goo, immediately realized that the spiritual power in their bodies seemed to be firmly imprisoned. Listen felt that the spiritual power in his body seemed to have become a crystal-like substance that couldn't be mobilized at all. Fei Qianqiong also felt that the spiritual power in his body had been sealed. Although it wasn't as hard to use as the crystal, although it wasn't as difficult to mobilize as a crystal-like substance, it was no different from sticky asphalt. At the same time, the flow of spiritual power in the mind-controlling silkworm goo's body was so slow that it needed a few seconds of preparation time to use its previous instantaneous skills. Sensing this situation, Fei Qianqiong couldn't help but let out a long sigh. It was actually another Fei that was about to become a suzerain. How could he fight this? It was simply unsolvable. Chapter 4:14. The hunchbacked old man, Elder Nyo, stroked the dark spirit-eye tadpole in his hand and looked up at Listen. Your spiritual power has been sealed, so don't resist anymore. Realize the final value of your life. Dark-eyed scorpion tiger, those 6 units over there will be your supper tonight. Eat quickly and report back to young Master Zheng. Upon hearing its contractor's words, the sharpness of the dark-eyed scorpion tiger's tail hidden in the shadows emerged. The dark-eyed scorpion tiger's pitch-black tail hook flashed. 6 hook shadows mixed with a layer of darkness domain's embryonic form attacked Listen, Fei Qianqiong, and the 4 Feis that they had summoned. Fei Qianqiong's face was pale. The dark-eyed scorpion tiger's attack had a layer of domain's power. With his spiritual power sealed, even if he wanted to let the mind-controlling silkworm goo use the heart wall ribbon again, it could not do so. Moreover, even if the mind-controlling silkworm goo used the heart wall ribbon, could it really block this attack with domain power? Just as the 6 hook shadows were about to land on Listen, Fei Qianqiong, and the 4 Feis that they had summoned, a fist-sized pink-purple hydrangea flower appeared out of thin air in the middle of the room. The pink-purple hydrangea flower gently spun in mid-air and was infinitely beautiful. The 6 hook shadows mixed with the domain of darkness were directly pulled into the pinkish-purple embroidered ball-shaped flower, and were crushed by the layers of pinkish-purple petals. A clear but abnormally gentle voice echoed out of thin air. What you said just now is wrong. There are still many spirit chi fluctuations that your eyes can't see. Listen and Fei Qianqiong had thought that they were doomed, but they didn't expect a turn for the better. Unexpectedly, there was a pinkish-purple flower in the shape of an embroidered ball that saved their lives. Listen immediately thought of Lin Yuan. Listen looked at this pink-purple hydrangea flower, and his heart was filled with peace of mind. Although this pink-purple hydrangea flower did not block in front of him, it was like an absolute defense. It even took away the aura that he had endured from the opposite side in the beautiful light rotation of the flower. The hunchbacked old man, Elder Nyo, immediately became nervous and consumed a large amount of spirit chi to urge the dark spirit-eye tadpole. It made the dark spirit-eye tadpole's hidden main eye light up, but it still couldn't see through the dark spirit-eye tadpole's main eye. Seeing the spiritual energy fluctuations in the pinkish-purple embroidered ball-shaped flower, the stooped old man, Elder Nyo, squeezed out all the spiritual power in his body without thinking. Almost all the spirit chi in the body of a pinnacle A-rank spirit chi professional was given to the dark-eyed scorpion tiger that was about to reach suzerain. The dark-eyed scorpion tiger's black carapace instantly lit up. The carapace on the dark-eyed scorpion tiger's body seemed to pull all the light in the room into darkness, turning the room into a world of darkness. The dark-eyed scorpion tiger's tail began to vibrate at a strange frequency. Finally, the tail directly stabbed into the carapace on its back. The dark energy that was originally wrapped around the tip of the hooked tail was all wildly injected into the dark-eyed scorpion tiger's body. The dark energy poured out in torrents, causing the dark-eyed scorpion tiger's domain to become even more solid. It was as if the back half of the dark-eyed scorpion tiger had disappeared into the darkness. Then, the dark-eyed scorpion tiger's 3 pitch-black eye sockets suddenly condensed into 3 strange, black, vertical pupils. The three strange eyeballs with vertical pupils began to spin at high speed, as if they were boosting the domain power around the dusky crystal black tiger. The domain power around the dusky crystal black tiger's body suddenly spread out from its originally solid state. It surrounded the spinning pink-purple embroidered ball-shaped flower in midair, wanting to completely pull it into the darkness domain. The unusually gentle voice sounded out of thin air again. You can't master a domain until you're at the suzerain grade. Your dark-eyed scorpion tiger is only at Diamond X/Fantasy 4. Even if you've touched the threshold of the domain, you've only grasped the form and not the spirit. Activating the domain to launch an attack is just neglecting the essentials. The expanding darkness domain had already pulled the slowly spinning embroidered ball-shaped flower into the domain. However, according to the feedback given by the dark-eyed scorpion tiger in the darkness domain, Elder Nyo found that the pink-purple embroidered ball-shaped flower still didn't seem to exist in the domain. Elder Nyo's eyes stared straight at the pink-purple embroidered ball-shaped flower suspended in midair. His voice was abnormally solemn. Who are you? Elder Nyo's heart sank completely at this moment. At the same time, he felt a sense of absurdity. He was a pinnacle king-class expert, an existence that even his contracted Diamond 8/Fantasy 3 Dark Spirit Eye tadpole couldn't discover with all its might. It could only be a suzerain/myth breed fae. Furthermore, this myth breed fae had to be at least myth 2. Even if it was a suzerain/myth eye fae that was good at concealment. Elder Nyo felt that even if the Dark Spirit Eye tadpole couldn't discover the target's existence, the Diamond X/Fantasy 4 Dark-Eyed Scorpion Tiger's pseudodomain definitely wouldn't be unable to discover the target's existence. Just a moment ago, he was a ferocious hunter who was toying with two ant-like prey. However, in the blink of an eye, the world had changed, and he had become the prey from the hunter. The unusually gentle voice carried a hint of laughter. From the moment you entered this house, I saw you being infinitely rampant. I arrived before you, yet you asked me who I was. I should be the one asking you. Fei Qianxiong swallowed his saliva with difficulty. What exactly was the background of the listening heron Chamber of Commerce's backer, that youth wearing a strange mask? This myth breed fae was obviously not the one that had been with the youth wearing a strange mask during the day. He was actually lucky enough to see two suzerain/myth breed faes on the same day. Since when were suzerain/myth breed faes so worthless? The hunchbacked old man, Elder Nyo, didn't know why the pink-purple embroidered ball-shaped flower spinning beautifully in midair didn't reveal the slightest aura. However, the existence of this pink-purple embroidered ball-shaped flower made his heart feel as though it was being pressed by 1,000 jacks. Elder Nyo shouted in a deep voice. Sir, the listening heron Chamber of Commerce is something that my Zheng family is determined to obtain. Listen is also someone that my Zheng family wants to kill tonight. Just as Elder Nyo said this, that unusually gentle voice was tainted with a trace of coldness. Can't I protect the person that the Zheng family wants to kill when it's something that the Zheng family is determined to obtain? As soon as this unusually gentle voice fell, the pink-purple embroidered ball-shaped flower spinning gracefully in midair suddenly blossomed with a gorgeous pink-colored brilliance. Countless pink-purple petals poured out of the embroidered ball-shaped flower. The pink-purple petals danced in midair. The petals were as light as a rainbow-colored dress and as graceful as a graceful swan. Amidst the elegant dance, it startled the deep midsummer. At that moment, a gentle shout echoed. Midsummer Cage. Second update seeking monthly votes, recommendation votes hehe. If you're reading a book, please post this chapter prove that I'm not writing alone woo. End of this chapter. Chapter 4:15. The moment the gentle voice rang out, a cold glint flashed across the sky. The pinkish-purple petals tore this dark domain into pieces like the dawn that banished the darkness. Immediately after, Elder Nyo discovered that these pinkish-purple petals combined with each other. They were like shackles that imprisoned him, his contracted dark-eyed scorpion tiger, and the dark spirit eye tadpole. Under the imprisonment of these petals, his body could not move. At the same time, he could no longer mobilize the spirit chi in his body. He was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered without the ability to resist. The abnormally gentle voice that appeared out of thin air had a calm tone, but the words it said seemed to be mocking. Compared to the spiritual power imprisonment you were so proud of just now, do you see my means in your eyes? Amidst the sprinkling of pink-purple petals, a graceful figure appeared beside Listen. The graceful figure raised her hand and shook the bracelet hanging on her wrist. There were many pinkish-purple embroidered ball-shaped flowers on this bracelet, which let out crisp colliding sounds as it shook. The pinkish-purple embroidered ball-shaped flowers that were rotating in the air shrank as if they had found a home and flew toward the woman's wrist. They turned into a small pinkish-purple embroidered ball-shaped pendant like the other pendants. The hunchbacked old man, Elder Nyo, could not help but exclaim. There was an indescribable shock in his aged voice. Fey martial materialization. You're actually at Myth 3. Endless Summer ignored Elder Nyo's exclamation and snapped her fingers. Enlightenment Law, Willpower Examination. As soon as Endless Summer's voice fell, Elder Nyo felt a pain in his spiritual spatial zone as if he had been pierced by a sharp thorn. After this pain, he recovered to his original state. Elder Nyo found that he did not have any abnormalities. At that moment, Endless Summer frowned slightly and said, I heard you coming and going like a dog. I heard you running around like a dog, but it turns out you're just a servant. How ironic. Elder Nyo's face turned red, but before he could speak, Endless Summer said, humans are valued. Everyone should respect themselves. All living things can be called humans. If you see others as dogs, then you are the real dog. Since you've already sworn with the willpower rune, there's really no use in keeping you. Elder Nyo did not expect that the news that Listen had released about the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce having a backer would actually be true. The backer behind the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce was definitely not weak. Otherwise, with his strength at the peak of the king's stage, he wouldn't have fallen into a dead end just to complete young Master Zheng's mission. Old Nyo said urgently. I swear by the willpower rune that I am loyal to the patriarch of the Zheng family's third lineage, the Zheng family's third lineage. Before Elder Nyo could finish speaking, Endless Summer snapped her fingers again. I hate dark-type Fays the most. Dark-type Fays should die. Especially this kind of black tiger that likes to dig out the heart when it eats. Enlightenment rune, mind still. The moment Endless Summer said that her mind was still, whether it was Elder Nyo, the dark-eyed scorpion tiger, or the dark spirit eye tadpole, they all fell into a state of deathly stillness. It was as if he had entered an endless slumber. Immediately after, Endless Xia Su clenched her fist and yelled. Bloom! Shooting spear of summer. The midsummer cage that had previously trapped Elder Nyo, the dark-eyed scorpion tiger, and the dark spirit eye tadpole had turned into 3 spears made of pinkish-purple petals in the blink of an eye. The moment the spear condensed, it pierced through his heart. The pinnacle king-class expert, Elder Nyo, the Diamond X/Fantasy 4 dark-eyed scorpion tiger, and the Diamond 8/Fantasy 3 dark spirit eye tadpole. Just like that, they died from these 3 shooting spears of summer made of pinkish-purple petals without any struggle in their long slumber. Fei Qianqiong was completely subdued at this moment, and he felt a lot of sweat in his palms. His entire palms were completely drenched. Bai Qinghu had previously hinted for him to swear with the willpower rune to become the Iron Arm Chamber of Commerce's guardian. Although there were no restrictions on becoming the Iron Arm Chamber of Commerce's guardian, he would not be like a servant, where his life and death were in the hands of others. However, the loyalty contract issued by the willpower rune was different from the oath of exchange. The loyalty oath could only be issued once in a lifetime. Choosing to become a guardian and be loyal to a faction or a person was a lifelong matter. Even if the person being protected died or the faction was destroyed. The loyalty oath could not be issued a second time in a lifetime. Fei Qianqiong was now extremely glad that he had not issued the loyalty oath to the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce under Bai Qinghu's hint. If he had really issued the loyalty oath to the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce, then he would probably be a dead man during the day. The hunchbacked old man in front of him was an example. Endless Summer shook the pink-purple metal bell hanging on her bracelet. The dark-eyed scorpion tigers and dark spirit-eye tadpoles' corpses were all stored in the pink-purple bell-shaped diamond face storage box by Endless Summer. Endless Summer nodded with satisfaction. These two diamond/fantasy breed fays had been killed by Summer Solstice's spear in their slumber, so they could really preserve their integrity to the greatest extent. Listen hurriedly bowed to Endless Summer to show that he dared to take it. "Thank you, Senior, for saving me." Endless Summer turned her head, looked at Listen, and said gently, "Young Master arranged for me to stay here for this period of time. Young Master arranged for me to stay here for this period of time. Don't worry and boldly develop according to your plan." Upon hearing that, Listen immediately stopped worrying about his future safety. Since the Zheng family had sent a pinnacle king-class expert to kill him, it was equivalent to saying that the Zheng family had the intention to kill him. As long as he was not dead, the Zheng family would not be able to get what they wanted from him. Then the danger he would face in the future would never end. Listen's peace of mind was different. Fei Qianqiong could not help but reveal an ecstatic expression on his face. With a suzerain/myth 3 expert that could perform body weaponization, his safety could be considered guaranteed. Fei Qianqiong was simply afraid of death. This feeling of having to experience life and death twice a day. Fei Qianqiong suddenly felt that fighting and killing among spirit chi professionals is simply too boring. Acting is still more interesting. Endless Summer looked at Fei Qianqiong with a trace of approval in her eyes. With a flip of her hand, a willpower containing blood was injected into the blood-toothed cricket's body. When Fei Qianqiong felt this blood willpower, his body could not help but tremble. At that moment, Fei Qianqiong heard an unusually gentle voice beside his ear. "You did well just now. Little Sister Blood said to let me return your blood poison willpower depending on the situation. I'm giving it to you now." Fei Qianqiong was so excited that he was incoherent and almost choked. Fei Qianqiong did not feel anything when the blood-toothed cricket was a fantasy breed. But when the blood-toothed cricket fell from a fantasy breed, Fei Qianqiong felt how desperate the feeling of powerlessness was. Now that he had regained the blood poison willpower, even though the blood-toothed cricket needed some time to nourish it before it could return to its previous state of complete victory. However, if it weren't for the blood poison's willpower that had been lost and regained, Fei Qianqiong was really not sure if he could comprehend another willpower rune suitable for the blood-toothed cricket to fuse with in this life. Third update seeking monthly votes and recommendation votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 4:16. Indigo Azure City was surrounded by the sea on 3 sides, and it just so happened that the wind was blowing today. The waves hit the reefs on the shore and made the sound of rolling waves. The people who lived on the shore of Indigo Azure City were used to this sound. When he fell asleep with this sound, he slept even more soundly. In a luxuriously decorated mansion in the center of Indigo Azure City, a middle-aged man with a sinister look in his eyes said enthusiastically, "Second young master, do you like my chess pieces carved from jade-textured ebony and jade-textured white sandalwood? If it's to your liking, I'll have someone send it to you when second young master returns." The youth that was addressed as second young master had a skinny body and was wearing the Creation Master Association standard robe. He was using his finger to count the rows of books on the bookshelf. Hearing the middle-aged man's words, he waved his hand without turning his head. "I never place jade-textured black and white chess pieces in my study. Even if I do, I only place completely jade-textured black and white chess pieces. Speaking of completely jade-textured black and white chess pieces, I have 2 pots. Third uncle, if you like it, I'll have someone bring you a pot so you can broaden your horizons." The words of the youth, who was wearing a Creation Master's robe and addressed as second young master, caused the middle-aged man's enthusiastic smile to freeze. It was extremely awkward. Just as he was about to speak, the second young master, who was wearing a Creation Master robe, turned around and spoke. "Third uncle, your 3 bloodlines have never dared to touch the coastal resources because you're afraid of being targeted by the Qiu and Wei families. At the same time, you're also afraid that the 1st, 2nd, and 4th bloodlines will secretly cause trouble. I, Zhen Kaiyuan, am standing up for third uncle in the main house, but you won't say a word about how much of the coastal resources are going to be given to me? You're only taking a pot of jade-textured black and white chess pieces as a sign of sincerity. Aren't you looking down on me, Zheng Kaiyuan? The sinister-eyed middle-aged man looked even more embarrassed as he hurriedly said. Since second young master is willing to stand up for the third bloodline in the main family, how can our third bloodline be lacking in resources for second young master? I wonder what second young master thinks about our third lineage giving 30% of the profits from the offshore coastal resources to second young master. The youth who was addressed as second young master waved his hand and summoned a small marten with a black and white tail. As soon as the sable with one black and one white tail was summoned, it saw the pot of black and white chess pieces made of jade-textured ebony and jade-textured white sandalwood. It immediately became lively and looked at its master with its watery eyes. The second young master looked at his contracted little marten with a gentle look on his face. Go, Sun Luo. Eat more. With its master's permission, the little marten with one black and one white tail scurried into the pot containing the black and white chess pieces. He gnawed on the chess pieces in the pot with a ka sound. The young man who was addressed as second young master looked up and gently stroked a strand of sable fur off his sleeve. He looked up at the sinister-looking middle-aged man and said, Third uncle, my yin-yang myriad mink is hungry. If this little thing wants to eat, I can't control it. I believe third uncle won't lower himself to the same level as this little thing. The sinister-looking middle-aged man hurriedly smiled apologetically. It is this pot of chess pieces fortune that second young master's fei likes to eat. The young man who was addressed as second young master seemed to have completely forgotten that he was the one who had asked the yin-yang myriad mink to eat more. The second young master seemed to be a little sleepy. He rubbed his temples and yawned. I want 50%. Without giving the sinister-looking middle-aged man a chance, the young man who was addressed as second young master spoke again. The Radiance Creation Master Youth Tournament is starting next year. I'm tight on money. 50%. If third uncle isn't willing, the first, second, and fourth lineages should be very willing. Upon hearing that, the sinister-looking middle-aged man's expression froze and he quickly replied. Second young master, why don't we have a good talk again? The young man who was addressed as second young master chuckled and said, Little Sun Luo, let's go. Little Senro, let's go. We shouldn't eat these chess pieces. The sinister-looking middle-aged man's face immediately turned pale, and he spoke in a panic. Second young master, 50% it is. The pitiful little marten, who was obviously not full yet, yawned again after being picked up by the young man who was addressed as second young master. I'm sleepy. Third uncle, why don't you come to my residence tomorrow and bring your most sincere regards? After the young man who was addressed as second young master left, the sinister-looking middle-aged man's face immediately turned gloomy. He sat on the chair for a long time without saying a word. His fists clenched tighter and tighter. At that moment, the sinister-looking middle-aged man's expression suddenly became astonished. Then, it was shock and worry. He immediately picked up his cell phone and dialed a number. The phone rang twice before it was picked up. When the sinister-looking middle-aged man heard the normal voice on the other end of the phone that seemed to have a hint of joy, the worry in his heart dissipated a lot. But immediately after, anger rushed up, and he forcefully suppressed his emotions. Where's Elder Nyo? The sinister-looking youth who received the call replied indifferently. I arranged for Elder Nyo to do some small things. Father, how did you persuade second young master to stand on our third lineage's side? Upon hearing this, the sinister-looking middle-aged man could no longer suppress his monstrous anger. He immediately erupted and scolded. Small things? Elder Nyo, and my allegiance oath is broken, and you say that it's a small thing? If you die outside, do I have to pretend that nothing happened? The sinister-looking middle-aged man's anger poured out crazily over the phone. It made the sinister-looking youth on the other end of the phone fall into a state of astonishment. But immediately after, an unconcealable horror appeared on the sinister-looking youth's face. The hand holding the cell phone trembled a little in this horror. Elder Nyo had sworn to his father with a willpower rune to become his father's servant. But now, his father said that Elder Nyo's allegiance oath was broken. Didn't this mean that Elder Nyo was already dead? Elder Nyo was a pinnacle king-class expert, and his contracted dark-eyed scorpion tiger was a Diamond X/Fantasy 4 Fae. How could someone with such strength die without a sound? Elder Nyo had just gone to the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce, a place where an ant was holding on with an empty shell, to kill that ant that had been holding on. How could he die? Before the sinister-looking youth could make more guesses, he heard his father's angry voice on the other end of the phone. Hurry up and get back to Indigo Azure City. How did my third lineage produce a useless thing like you? As he spoke, the sinister-looking middle-aged man felt like his lungs were about to explode. What was the reason that caused him to lose a peak king-level warrior for no apparent reason? After hanging up the phone, the sinister middle-aged man smashed his fist on the table in front of him. A loud bang was heard. At this moment, an expert who was even older than Elder Nyo but had a straight back walked in and said, "Master, why are you so angry?" When the middle-aged man saw the old man, he quickly stood up and said, "Uncle Jiao, please make a trip to the capital and help me bring that unfilial son back. I'd like to see what kind of trouble this unfilial son has caused in the capital." After waking up in the morning, he had breakfast downstairs and returned to his room to log on to Star Web. Lin Yuan's eyes lit up when he saw that the 2 letters he had sent last night had received a reply. However, when Lin Yuan opened one of the letters, a voice suddenly rang out. Lin Yuan frowned deeply. Asking for monthly and recommended votes. End of chapter. Chapter 4:17. Lin Yuan frowned and looked at the reply on the letter. Freezing cold, I'll be there at 10 o'clock. I need to see the bronze/epic lizard species Fae that I mentioned before. I also have some requests that I need to say in advance. Freezing Cold was one of the 2 king-class experts who had 2 main Faes when Lin Yuan had issued the trade message. Freezing Cold had 3 spirit chi runes and 2 main Faes. It was considered a pretty good set of equipment for king-class experts. Therefore, when Lin Yuan had seen him ask if there was a bronze/epic lizard species Fae on his side, he had immediately enhanced one. Looking at the personal information sent by Freezing Cold. One of Freezing Cold's 2 contracted Faes was a Diamond 3/Fantasy 2 barb-toothed terror lizard. The other was a Diamond I/Fantasy 2 saber-toothed salamander. In terms of raw strength, Freezing Cold was inferior to Fei Qianqiong. However, the Diamond I/Fantasy 2 saber-toothed salamander had completed the transition from a lizard species Fae to a dragon species Fae and had great potential. Lin Yuan had taken a fancy to Freezing Cold's potential. Moreover, Lin Yuan really did not have any king-class experts that he could use now. That was why he had prepared Freezing Cold's needs in advance. Otherwise, given Freezing Cold's strength, he was really not qualified to make such a request. It was just like when the Lightning Sparrow King's pinnacle king-class expert squad wanted to get a bronze/epic Fae. They also needed to integrate resources and put in a lot of effort. As the saying went, be courteous to the wise. Since Lin Yuan was going to implement the white-clothed followers plan, he would not be stingy with resources for capable people. However, the implementation of the white-clothed followers plan was not to raise a boss. Lin Yuan would not be stingy with resources for the white-clothed followers, but the premise was that he needed to have absolute control. Lin Yuan had already drawn a question mark in his heart about this king-class expert called Freezing Cold. The white-clothed followers' plan was to form a sword that could sweep across Sky City. The most important thing for a sharp weapon like a sword was obedience. Otherwise, no matter how sharp the sword was, it would hurt itself if it was disobedient. However, Lin Yuan did not directly exclude Freezing Cold. He intended to take a look in person before making a decision. It was still early, and he had nothing to do anyway, so he called his purchase with No Lost Star Web Fan Club. He was prepared to look through the chat history of his purchase with No Lost Stores Fan Club. After flipping through the records, he realized that an entire night had passed. The people in the group were still enthusiastically discussing the auction of the 30 flower brocade pearls. These 30 flower brocade pearls were treated as group welfare and were publicly auctioned in the group. Therefore, every member's bid would be seen by all the members in the group. Every time someone posted a new price, they would be praised by the others in the group and called them Big Boss. Then, after a period of time, someone else would raise the price. In addition, braised egghead stream in the clouds, violent-tempered daughter, Buddha-tempered and Zhou Jiesin joined in. Lin Yuan realized that the auction of the 30 flower brocade pearls, which was treated as group welfare, seemed to have become a ranking competition between the bigwigs in the group. Lin Yuan saw that the highest bidder was a Class 4 Creation Master. The Class 4 Creation Master had already raised the price to a source-type item, 250 caddies of gold-piercing aluminum ore, and 70 mid-grade strange flames. Lin Yuan could not help but secretly click his tongue when he saw this price. A source-type item was a lot more precious than the flower brocade pearls. In other words, it was very difficult to exchange the flower brocade pearls for a source-type item. But now, this Class 4 Creation Master was willing to take out a source-type item to exchange for the flower brocade pearls. This could really reflect the Creation Master's consistent wealth. They would not consider the price when facing the things they wanted. The gold-grade spirit material, piercing aluminum, was an extremely dangerous spirit material. It could hurt people if placed there. The bristly aluminum ore would constantly release sharp metal sword auras. Everything around the piercing aluminum ore would be attacked by the metal sword rays indiscriminately. After injecting spiritual power into it, the metal sword rays released by the piercing aluminum ore would become sharper, more powerful, and the range would also expand. Previously, Lin Yuan had wanted to choose to fuse the gold-piercing aluminum ore into the source sand. However, after weighing the pros and cons, Lin Yuan still chose the day and night spirit silver. At that time, it was more important for Lin Yuan to improve his defense than to enhance his offensive ability. The gold-piercing aluminum ore was even rarer than the day and night spirit silver. The last time it had appeared in the rare life form pavilion was 8 months ago. After looking through the chat records for a while, Lin Yuan found that the Class 4 Creation Master's price had been bid by someone else. Lin Yuan was very interested in the 250 caddies of gold-piercing aluminum ore. Lin Yuan could not help but think that even if this Class 4 Creation Master could not complete the final bid, if he wanted to take out the flower brocade pearls to exchange with this Class 4 Creation Master for the 250 caddies of gold-piercing aluminum ore, this Class 4 Creation Master should be willing to do so. Lin Yuan could already feel the huge benefits of the network formed by the purchase with No Loss Stores fan club members in his collection of spiritual ingredients. After feeling this huge benefit, Lin Yuan dispelled the idea of trading these flower brocade pearls with other factions. Through this group welfare auction, Lin Yuan understood the terrifying purchasing power of these big shots in his group. There was still half a day before the end of the group welfare auction. But now, the auction price of these 30 flower brocade pearls was already much higher than the market price. Therefore, the saved flower brocade pearls were put outside for trading. It was better to auction them in the group welfare mode. This was also the same as strengthening the tenacity and flexibility of the relationship network in the group. As Lin Yuan looked at the 10 flower brocade pearls on display in his store, he could already imagine what would happen after tonight's exhibition. He could already imagine that after tonight's exhibition, these 10 flower brocade pearls would definitely set off a bloody storm. Lin Yuan went to check the price of the mid-grade strange flame and found that it had risen a lot compared to before. Lin Yuan blinked and could not help but wonder if he had pried up the price of the mid-grade strange flame spiritual ingredient. Lin Yuan logged onto the Star Web forum and searched for the welfare of his purchase with No Loss Stores fan club. He wanted to see if it had spread out as he had imagined. As a result, Lin Yuan was embarrassed. The welfare of his Star Web Stores fan club had spread out. However, almost half of the posts that Lin Yuan checked were made by lifestyle class spirit chi professionals scolding him in groups. Second update, end of this chapter. Chapter 4:18. In the Radiance Federation, it was those lifestyle-class spirit chi professionals who needed the strange flames the most. These lifestyle-class spirit chi professionals criticized the Purchase with No Loss store's owner for using blind barter to purchase mid-grade strange flames. As a result, the price of mid-grade strange flames had risen in the market, severely affecting the daily consumption of lifestyle-class spirit chi professionals. These lifestyle-class spirit chi professionals' accusations made Lin Yuan feel aggrieved. He had only collected more than 200 mid-level strange flames so far. How big of an impact could they have? Why do these lifestyle-class spirit chi professionals hate me so much? What he didn't know was that some factions and creation masters wanted to make deals with him in the future in exchange for the flower brocade pearls. He had already secretly hoarded quite a number of mid-level strange flames. Of course, there were also some forces that did not need the flower brocade pearls. They just wanted to take advantage of the limelight and absorb the resources of mid-grade strange flames that were not abundant in the market. Then, he would raise the price of the mid-level strange flame and take the opportunity to make a killing. He looked at the time, logged out of Star Web, and went downstairs to find Lu Jie. During the time Hu Quan had been promoted to a Class 5 spirit craftsman, Lin Yuan had already told him about the layout of his private faction territory on Star Web. Hu Quan was also working overtime according to Lin Yuan's requirements. He knew that he would immediately get busy after his faction announced its functions on Star Web and started to send out fate letters. Moreover, after the new year, when he established the space tunnel connecting to the Divine Wood Federation, he still had to take care of the development of the Divine Wood Federation. Naturally, he did not have the energy to manage these white-clothed followers. Lu Jie was his retainer knight, so Lu Jie was the most suitable person to control these white-clothed followers. As soon as Lin Yuan went downstairs, he saw Lu Jie walking out of the training room. When Lu Jie saw Lin Yuan, he immediately walked over excitedly and said, "Brother Lin, I'm here." Lin Yuan, my insect queen's bayonet beetle genetic model has evolved. The bayonet beetle's genetic model should now be renamed to flesh-mincing blade insect. After saying that, Lu Jie circulated his spiritual energy in front of Lin Yuan and summoned the insect queen that was half the size of a palm. When Lu Jie first summoned the insect queen, it looked like it was on the brink of death. However, as the purple flesh cocoon squirmed, a small head popped out. Seeing Lu Jie, the little girl was pleasantly surprised. A petite figure flew out of the purple flesh cocoon and hugged Lu Jie's neck. Only now did Lin Yuan know that the insect queen's true body was actually a fairy source-type life form after recovering from its near-death state. Fairy source-type life forms referred to non-animal, plant, or item source-type life forms. Most fairy source-type life forms had humanoid appearances. Lu Jie's insect queen had been hugging Lu Jie's neck ever since it came out. She looked very shy and very dependent on Lu Jie. Lu Jie lovingly rubbed his cheek against the insect queen. At that moment, a phrase suddenly flashed in Lin Yuan's mind, deep father-daughter love. How was Lu Jie raising a source-type life form? He was practically raising a daughter. Lu Jie said to the petite insect queen, "Pian, produce a flesh-mincing blade insect." As soon as Lu Jie finished speaking, Lu Jie's fairy-like little insect queen turned into a streak of purple light and returned to the purple flesh cocoon. Immediately after, the purple flesh cocoon landed on the ground and immediately turned into a zerg base. Its body expanded to over 3 meters, and there were many sac-like tubes that were unique to insect species phase. The moment the insect queen transformed, a beetle with an angular shell with 8 sharp long legs was produced by this huge zerg base and appeared in front of Lin Yuan. After carefully examining the flesh-mincing beetle produced by Lu Jie's insect queen, Lin Yuan was quite surprised. This source-type cocoon of evolution was actually so powerful. It allowed the bayonet beetle, an insect species Fey with a relatively simple genetic model, to be so greatly strengthened. The bayonet beetle's attack method was to use the sharp horns on its head to stab. At the same time, it used its 8 legs to assist in the attack. After the bayonet beetle had been strengthened by the cocoon of evolution, the flesh-mincing beetle had weakened the sharp horns on its head. Although the sharp horns on its head had been weakened, each side of the prismatic carapace on its body was very sharp and played the same role as the sharp horns. The 8 sharp, bone-scraper-like legs could quickly cut the Fae's fur and mash the flesh into meat paste as they moved quickly. Although the flesh-mincing blade insects and bayonet beetles' attack methods had not changed. One flesh-mincing blade insect's strength could completely single-handedly fight 3 bayonet beetles of the same size. This was the process of Lu Jie's insect sea going from a qualitative to a quantitative change. Coupled with the Insect Queen's exclusive skills, Insect Swarm Frenzy and Explosive Recovery, the Insect Queen's attacks were extremely powerful. Lu Jie had only buffed one of his skills, yet his strength had increased by at least an entire level. Lin Yuan was very happy about Lu Jie's increase in strength. Congratulations, Brother Lu. Your Insect Sea has taken on a new look. Lin Yuan could feel that Lu Jie was clearly more confident than before. Now that the agreed time with the 2 King-class experts had arrived, Lin Yuan decided to say, let's go. Big Brother Lu, let's log into Star Web and meet at the entrance of a store called Purchase with No Loss. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Lu Jie was a little puzzled. Was Lin Yuan asking him to go shopping with him? Lu Jie had heard about the popularity of the Purchase with No Loss store even though he did not close the forum. It was said that it was a boutique shop with a mysterious boss that only sold exquisite items. Although Lu Jie was puzzled, he naturally would not refuse Lin Yuan's words. Alright, I'll return to my room and log into the Star Web now. Hu Quan no longer stayed up late recently, so he used the daytime to create various objects. When he saw that Lin Yuan was pulling Lu Jie to Star Web for something, he said, let's go. When the 2 of you go out, put on the masks I made for you. Boys have to protect themselves when they go out. When Lin Yuan heard Hu Quan's words, he felt that Uncle Hu Quan was a little strange, as though there was an unknown story behind him. Why do boys have to protect themselves? Weren't the ones who needed to protect themselves all girls? Lu Jie could not help but ask when Hu Quan mentioned the oddly shaped but very light mask. Uncle Hu, aren't the masks you made only worn when we're out representing our forces? Isn't it strange to wear it in a Star Web store? Before Hu Quan could speak, Lin Yuan smiled brightly at Lu Jie, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. Brother Lu, we really have to wear it this time. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Lu Jie immediately became solemn. He knew that Lin Yuan was looking for him to go to Star Web to do something related to his faction. Suddenly, Lu Jie thought of the rumors on Star Web, saying that the owner of the Purchase with No Loss store was a young man. Lu Jie could not help but have some doubts. Could this young boss be Lin Yuan? Looking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 419. Lu Jie returned to his room one step ahead of Lin Yuan. Just as Lin Yuan was about to return to his room, he heard Hu Quan's voice. I really don't know how you came up with so many ideas. Other people are afraid of wasting this completely jade-like gold-rimmed Nanmu. But you asked me to extract the crystallized golden threads from the gold-threaded Nanmu for you, bit by bit. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan scratched the back of his head and asked Hu Quan. Uncle Hu, is it difficult to extract the golden threads from the completely jade-textured gold-threaded Nanmu? Hu Quan chuckled and said. If I didn't have this fantasy breed wood weaving house centipede, I wouldn't have been able to deal with these crystallized golden threads. Even if I could separate these crystallized golden threads from these completely jade-textured gold-threaded Nanmu, I wouldn't be able to separate them so completely like this. However, the number of completely jade-textured gold-rimmed Nanmu you gave me is really quite a lot. It will take at least 13 to 14 days to extract all the crystallized golden threads. At this point, Hu Quan rolled his eyes and said with a grin. Why don't you tell Wen Yu to let me stay up late during this period? Also, don't let Lu Jie make pork liver soup for me while I stay up late. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan replied without thinking. Don't worry, Uncle Hu. You can take care of it during the day. Even if I tell Wen Yu about you staying up late, it won't count. Lin Yuan was also against Hu Quan staying up all night. Compared to Hu Quan's creativity as a Class 5 spirit craftsman, Lin Yuan hoped that Hu Quan could create in a healthy state. Instead of rushing for work, staying up all day and affecting his health. He had never treated Hu Quan as a tool and wanted to squeeze Hu Quan's labor at any time. Hu Quan's image was pieced together on the wall behind him. Hu Quan was already a part of the manor. Seeing that his plan didn't work, Hu Quan said angrily. "Alright, I'm going to get busy. Go back to your room and don't let Lu Jia wait for too long." Lin Yuan finally knew what it meant to throw it away after using it. No, it should be thrown away if it's useless. What a jerk. When he logged on to Star Web this time, he put on the mask with the majestic sky city pattern that Hu Quan had created with completely jade-textured silk threads. When he arrived at the entrance of the Purchase with No Loss store, he happened to see an acquaintance. When he saw the violent-tempered woman at the entrance of his store, he greeted her. The violent-tempered woman only recognized Lin Yuan when he took the initiative to greet her. It had to be said that Lin Yuan looked rather mature wearing the mask that Hu Quan had created, which only revealed his mouth and chin. The violent-tempered woman hurriedly said when she saw Lin Yuan. "Sir, why did the store stop selling silver usnias and elite spirit siphon goldfish?" Lin Yuan replied with a smile. "It only stopped yesterday. I don't know when it will stop. If you need silver rank usnias, you can send me a message directly." He cherished the people he had known when he was weak. The violent-tempered woman quickly waved her hand and said, "Sir, there's no need to trouble you. I've already gained so many benefits from your fan club." The violent-tempered woman was very grateful to Lin Yuan. When Lin Yuan had helped her daughter heal her Fae's damaged roots, he had also improved her Fae's quality. He had also conveniently improved his daughter's Fae's quality. This was simply a huge favor. During this time, the violent-tempered woman had gotten to know many big shots in Lin Yuan's Purchase with No Loss store's fan club. Just by listening to the news from these big shots, the violent-tempered woman had carried out a few transactions of spiritual materials. This allowed the violent-tempered woman to earn a lot of radiance dollars. The radiance dollars the violent-tempered woman earned in this month was more than what she usually earned in 2 years of hard work in the Guild Alliance. Lin Yuan wanted to invite the violent-tempered woman into the store for a while. Just as he was about to invite the violent-tempered woman, she said, "Sir, please go ahead. My roasted chicken is especially delicious. I'll send you a roasted chicken to touch later." After the violent-tempered woman left Lin Yuan's Purchase with No Loss store. As usual, she chatted in the Purchase with No Loss store's fan club. During her daily chatting, the violent-tempered woman accidentally spilled the beans. "Violent-tempered woman, I saw the group owner at the entrance of the Star Web store. He seems to be going into the store to do something." The violent-tempered woman's message in the group made the eyes of many big shots light up. The group owner had always been mysterious. After they entered the group, they only saw the group owner auction 30 flower brocade pearls as a group welfare. After that, the group leader didn't say anything else. The group owner was usually uncontactable. This was because the mysterious group owner was so aloof that he did not reply to any messages at all. Now that they heard that the group owner had appeared in the store, many of the big shots in the group who saw the violent-tempered woman's message immediately took action. Lin Yuan had only stood at the entrance for a few minutes when he saw Lu Jia walking over wearing a mask made by Hu Quan. Lu Jia usually wore the Radiance Sacred Hall's 100 Successor Battle Armor on Star Web for the Radiance 100 Sequence members. However, Hu Quan had changed the 100 Successor Battle Armor today and put on a reddish-gold half-body armor. Coupled with Lu Jia's mask, which only revealed his knife-like chin, he looked exceptionally heroic. When Lu Jia saw Lin Yuan, he was standing at the entrance of the store and opening the door of the originally closed Star Web store. Upon seeing this, Lu Jia knew that he had really guessed correctly. Lin Yuan was really the mysterious Purchase with No Loss store's owner. After Lin Yuan and Lu Jia met, they entered the Purchase with No Loss store. Lin Yuan's Purchase with No Loss store did not have any shelves inside. Since Lin Yuan had recently removed the silver usnias and elite spirit siphon goldfish, the purchase with no loss store's interior was empty. In addition, when Lin Yuan opened the store, the standard long table that Star Web had given him was still in the store. This made the purchase with no loss Star Web store look more like a restaurant with only one table than a fey and spiritual ingredient store. Lin Yuan had asked Lu Jia to come to the store half an hour earlier, which was 9:30 am. However, less than 5 minutes after Lin Yuan and Lu Jia sat down, they saw a thin man walk in. Lin Yuan asked the thin man, "Is it Zhou Luo? Is it Zhou Luo?" His appearance had been included in the personal information that the two King-class experts had sent him. Lin Yuan had already recognized that Zhou Luo was the King-class expert who had 3 willpower runes but had an extremely weak main fey. Second update button. Fever viral cold New Year's Day crying asking for tickets. End of this chapter. Chapter 420. When Zhou Luo heard the young man with the strange mask call out his name, he finally confirmed that he had not come to the wrong place. Zhou Luo looked around the store in surprise. He did not dare to believe that the legendary purchase with no loss store did not have any phase or spiritual ingredients. There was only an ordinary table. Zhou Luo said hurriedly, "I'm Zhou Luo. May I ask if my main fey, the Iron Bone Iguana, can meet your requirements?" Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan casually flipped his hand and summoned a chair. This chair was the same as the one Lin Yuan was sitting on, and it had been given to him by Star Web when he had opened his store. At this moment, Zhou Luo heard a young man wearing a strange mask say, "Take a seat first. There will be another person in a while. We'll talk when everyone is here." Hearing this, Zhou Luo sat on the chair. He stealthily sized up the 2 masked youths sitting not far from him. Just by looking at the mask, Zhou Luo could tell that the man in the white and blue robe was obviously of a higher status than the man in the reddish-gold half-body armor. This man in a white and blue striped robe should be the purchase with no loss store's owner. At the same time, Zhou Luo was secretly depressed. His Iron Bone Iguana was only a Platinum 9/Fantasy I existence. In terms of strength, it was hard to say who would emerge victorious if they were to fight against those Diamond 4/V fays that weren't fantasy breeds. Did he really have a chance to fight for a future with this kind of strength? At this moment, Zhou Luo was fantasizing about getting Heavenly Maiden-level elemental pearls produced by 5 scorching elemental shellfish. This would allow his main fey, the Iron Bone Iguana, to mutate the huge sarcoma on its neck into a second head. Just as Zhou Luo was letting his imagination run wild, Lin Yuan had already set up an entrance control for his purchase with no loss store, setting it so that only freezing cold could enter for a while. The setting of access control was the privilege of the owner of a private shop on the Star Web. Of course, this was excluding stores like Lin Yuan's that did not have to worry about buyers. Other shops had the privilege to set up access control, but they might not use it even once in their lives. Time flew by, and half an hour passed quickly. Lin Yuan's brows slowly furrowed. At this time, it was already 10 o'clock. However, freezing cold did not appear at the agreed time. After another 5 minutes, just as Lin Yuan was about to disqualify freezing cold from entering the door, a tall and sturdy man walked in through the door. This burly man was freezing cold. His cold eyes scanned around the house before he walked in front of Lin Yuan and said casually, "You're the one who killed Lin Yuan. I was watching the competition video in the Star Web video library and was delayed by 5 minutes." When Lin Yuan heard freezing cold's casual tone, his brows furrowed even tighter. At that moment, Lin Yuan changed the question mark in his heart from freezing cold to an incorrect one. Freezing Cold's casual attitude showed that Freezing Cold didn't take this meeting seriously at all. Not only did it show Freezing Cold's contempt for their forces, but it also showed that Freezing Cold was not a punctual person. Before Lin Yuan could say anything, he heard Freezing Cold speak again. "Your store doesn't seem to have as many good things as others have told me. I'm here to make a request. Take it out for me to see first. If you can't meet my requirements, then I won't waste my time here." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan's frown eased, but his gaze was no longer on freezing cold. Lin Yuan's tone was no different from usual. Are you here to exchange this bronze/epic fey with your life? Freezing cold shook his head and said. Serve me? What kind of service? An oath of loyalty is definitely impossible, but I can complete the task according to your instructions. After completing a certain mission, I will exchange the bronze/epic lizard species fey from you. If your mission is too difficult to complete, I can help you find more king-class elites to help you complete the mission, but you'll have to pay for it. Of course, if you're willing to give me this bronze/epic lizard species fey first, I can reduce the reward for each mission by 10%. Just as Freezing Cold finished speaking, he heard a low voice. Are you worthy of giving you the bronze/epic fey first? As he spoke, Lu Jia, who was wearing the reddish-gold half-body armor, stood up. According to what Lin Yuan had just told him, Lu Jia knew that the purpose of coming to the Star Web store this time was to recruit king-class experts. He wanted these king-class experts to become Sky City's white-clothed followers. In essence, Lin Yuan intended to start expanding Sky City's military force. Lin Yuan also said that he would pour bronze/epic fey resources into the recruited white-clothed followers. It was equivalent to saying that Lin Yuan had to make a considerable investment in every white-clothed follower. Few people understood Lin Yuan's wealth better than Lu Jia, who had been by Lin Yuan's side since the beginning. However, this burly man in front of him shamelessly wanted to get the bronze/epic fey resources first, but he was unwilling to be loyal. He was simply too greedy. If he took out the bronze/epic fey resources, he could hire a squad of pinnacle king-class experts to go on a mission. Instead of hiring such a king-class expert who had no concept of time to do multiple missions. Clearly, it was more worthwhile to hire a small team of peak king stage powerhouses. Upon hearing Lu Jia's words, Freezing Cold's face showed obvious displeasure. You're just a Star Web store. If I hadn't heard that your store sells any kind of bronze/epic feys, I wouldn't have been able to find you. I wouldn't think of doing odd jobs here. Compared to us, the huge axe mercenaries, your Star Web store is still far from being good. Lu Jia's face darkened even further. Lin Yuan wasn't angry, but he was rather speechless. He had always been used to treating other factions as leaks and would always use the things produced in his Spirit Lock spatial zone to harvest them. But this time, there was actually a king-class expert who had pledged loyalty to a faction. However, he wanted to go to his purchase with no loss store to accept missions and harvest his leaks. Moreover, this Freezing Cold not only wants to cut his leaks, but also wants the middleman to earn the price difference. Speaking of the huge axe mercenaries, Lin Yuan had learned about all the major factions from Wen Yu. The axe mercenaries were not among them. Lin Yuan looked at Lu Jia and asked. Brother Lu, have you heard of the battle axe mercenaries? Lu Jia shook his head, but his eyes were still very gloomy as he looked at Freezing Cold. Begging for recommendation votes, monthly votes, begging for free reading of this book. Big brother, if you really like this book, subscribe to it. End of this chapter. Chapter 421. Lin Yuan turned his head and looked at the man sitting on the chair who had come in first. Zhou Luo, have you heard of the huge axe mercenaries? Zhou Luo had always felt that he didn't have any sense of existence, but he didn't expect to be called out by this youth with a strange mask. Zhou Luo hurriedly replied, of course I've heard of the huge axe mercenaries. The huge axe mercenaries are a very powerful faction with 11 king-class experts. The strongest of them is said to be just a hair's breadth away from pinnacle king class. Lin Yuan nodded in response. Judging from the number and strength of king class experts, the huge axe mercenaries should be considered a veteran rising faction. Just from the word mercenary, it was obvious that this rising faction's function was to accept hires to complete missions and harvest resources. It was considered a rising faction that relied on martial strength to survive. It was almost the new year, and it was the carnival season of the Radiance Federation's tournament. The huge axe mercenaries probably couldn't take on any missions now, so Freezing Cold, as a member, had started to do odd jobs. Lin Yuan couldn't help but feel a little playful when Zhou Luo mentioned that the strongest expert in the huge axe mercenaries was just a hair's breadth away from pinnacle king class. Peak king class did not refer to a specific rank. All king class experts with Diamond 8/Fantasy 3 phase and above could be called pinnacle king class experts. Therefore, the introduction of being just a hair's breadth away from pinnacle king class experts was a little confusing. The huge axe mercenaries should be using this to show their signboard to the outside world. They were hoping to take on more missions. For a mercenary group with king class experts like this, the competition was extremely intense. Such factions relied on strength to speak. Therefore, it was clear at a glance which faction's business was better. As soon as Zhou Luo finished speaking, he didn't expect to be immediately targeted by the burly man next to him. A few days ago, my big brother became a pinnacle king class expert. What do you mean by just a hair's breadth away from pinnacle king class experts? Zhou Luo was a little speechless. I'm not a member of the huge axe mercenaries. Who the hell would keep an eye on the latest news of the huge axe mercenaries? What does it have to do with me whether your huge axe mercenaries have a pinnacle king class expert or not? Lin Yuan looked at Freezing Cold, who was obviously a little angry, and said, since you can't give me loyalty, then I can't give you a future either. You don't need to waste your time here. When Ling Shun heard this, the expression on his face stiffened, and he immediately became unwilling. My time isn't worth much anyway, so let it be wasted. I'm sure he's also a king class expert you found. I'd like to see if I'm suitable and if he's not. You're the owner of this shop. You can't possibly chase people away. Zhou Luo, who was sitting on the chair, felt somewhat baffled. Why was he being targeted by this burly man again? Oh my god. This big fellow wouldn't have any improper thoughts towards me, right? Lu Jia clenched his fists and looked at Lin Yuan. His eyes conveyed the meaning of, if you nod, I'll kick him out. Lin Yuan shook his head at Lu Jia and then said indifferently to Freezing Cold. You can stay if you want. Your door is open. You can leave whenever you're bored. Lin Yuan thought to himself. He wouldn't chase people out of the shop. However, they would set up an entrance guard to block all the customers outside the door, not allowing them to enter. After saying that, Lin Yuan wouldn't spare a trace of energy on Freezing Cold, who was standing at the side. Since Freezing Cold couldn't become a member of the white-clothed followers, Lin Yuan no longer needed to work on him. Lin Yuan said to Zhou Luo, who was sitting on the chair, you heard what we said just now. You heard what we said just now. If I can pour resources into you and let you grow quickly, are you willing to pledge your loyalty to me? Zhou Luo nodded without hesitation. Zhou Luo had heard the conversation between Lin Yuan and Freezing Cold just now, so he naturally knew that offering loyalty was to swear with the willpower rune and issue an allegiance oath. Only in this way could he directly express his loyalty and let the other party pour resources into him without any scruples. Giving and receiving might not necessarily be proportional to doing things. However, without giving, there would definitely be no return. Zhou Luo still understood this principle. Given his current situation, if he could find a faction to rely on, he wouldn't have to work so hard anymore. However, Zhou Luo didn't know how many resources this masked youth in front of him would pour on him in the future. In fact, what Zhou Luo was most worried about now was not what he could get after pledging his loyalty. Instead, it was whether this masked youth in front of him would accept his allegiance. Zhou Luo really wasn't confident enough in the strength of his main fei, the Iron Bone Iguana. Zhou Luo took a deep breath and said with some apprehension. Do you think my strength can meet the requirements? Zhou Luo knew very well that he never had the right to be picky about the faction he wanted to join. He could only quietly wait for others to choose him. Lin Yuan didn't care about the weakness of Zhou Luo's main fei. Lin Yuan remembered that Zhou Luo's main fei was a Platinum 9/Fantasy I defense-type fei, the Iron Bone Iguana. However, what Zhou Luo had written in the information at that time was that this Platinum 9/Fantasy I Iron Bone Iguana's neck had mutated. The mutation at the neck would affect some of the body's movements, which would affect the iron bone iguana's strength to a certain extent. Since Zhou Luo was in front of him, Lin Yuan also wanted to see what was wrong with his iron bone iguana in person. If Zhou Luo's main fei, the iron bone iguana, had a mutation at its neck, it would seriously affect its strength. In that case, Zhou Luo would be a burden to Lin Yuan. After all, Zhou Luo's main fei was weak to begin with. Coupled with the influence of the mutation at his neck, it would be difficult for him to obtain resources to nurture new feis. In this case, even if Lin Yuan gave Zhou Luo a bronze/epic fei, Zhou Luo would still need Lin Yuan's investment if he wanted to grow. If it was such a loss-making deal, he would not do it. Thus, Lin Yuan said, "Summon your main fei for me to see." Zhou Luo hesitated for a moment. He then took a deep breath and channeled his spiritual energy to summon his main fei, the iron bone iguana. The moment Zhou Luo summoned the iron bone iguana, Lin Yuan's eyes were fixed on its neck. It was not that Lin Yuan was deliberately staring at the neck of Zhou Luo's main fei, the iron bone iguana. The sarcoma on its neck was too obvious. The sarcoma on the neck of Zhou Luo's main fei, the iron bone iguana. It was a quarter of the size of the iron bone iguana's head. This made Lin Yuan suddenly think of a delicacy, the big potato pressure pot small potato. Second update seeking monthly votes, recommendation votes, and full subscriptions. End of this chapter. Chapter 422. After the iron bone iguana was summoned, it seemed to feel very uncomfortable on its neck, so it started to habitually shake its neck. However, due to the huge tumor on its neck growing on the right side, the iron bone iguana's shaking toward the right side of the tumor was obviously a big burden. This situation made it difficult for the iron bone iguana, a defense-type fei, to quickly respond to attacks on the right side of its body. Lin Yuan used Morbius True Data to check this iron bone iguana's attributes. Fei name, iron bone iguana, fei species, iguana/giant iguana, fei grade, platinum, 9 out of 10, fei type, earth, fei quality, fantasy. Lin Yuan found that there was nothing wrong with the iron bone iguana's basic attributes. However, when Lin Yuan saw the reason for the mutation at the iron bone iguana's neck in True Data, his pupils constricted. It could be said that this iron bone iguana had built a ladder to the top of the mountain through mutation. However, as the iron bone iguana's contractor, Zhou Luo did not have the conditions to send the iron bone iguana to the bottom of the mountain. He wanted the iron bone iguana to climb the mountain. As for the pure fire elemental energy required for this iron bone iguana to transform, True Data said, Lin Yuan had a lot of it. The scorching elemental shellfish in Morbius Spirit Lock Spatial Zone would produce an elemental pearl containing pure fire elemental energy every few minutes. However, the Heaven and Earth Fei Twin Fire Thorn's main flower absorbed fire elemental energy. It was not as powerful as the floating island whale. The scorching elemental shellfish produced elemental pearls faster than the Twin Fire Thorn's main flower absorbed them. Therefore, Lin Yuan had to collect these elemental pearls containing pure fire elemental energy every once in a while. Now, Lin Yuan had collected nearly 500 of these elemental pearls containing pure fire elemental energy. These elemental pearls containing pure fire elemental energy could be considered Lin Yuan's more precious resource reserves at present. At that moment, Lin Yuan heard a burst of presumptuous laughter. Freezing Cold pointed at the iron bone iguana with a disdainful expression. "I didn't expect you to be an affinity lizard species fei like me, but your deformed lizard is too weak. My fei can bite a deformed lizard like you to death." After saying that, Freezing Cold channeled his spiritual energy and summoned his 2 lizard species main feis. Zhou Luo's iron bone iguana was 7 meters long because it was a giant iguana. However, in front of the 2 feis summoned by Freezing Cold, the iron bone iguana suddenly became small. Although the Burst Fang Terror lizard was also 7 meters long, it was extremely muscular. The bulging muscles and the sharp teeth in its mouth were enough to show the Bucktooth Terror lizard's powerful attack power. Although the other saber-toothed Japalura's level and quality were not as high as the buck-toothed terror lizard, it was much stronger than the other saber-toothed drake. However, the sword-toothed dragon lizard's body was nearly 12 meters long and had the massive aura unique to dragon species phase. He used Morbius True data to check the attributes of these two lizard phase. Fey name, burst-toothed terror lizard, spirit species, tyrannical lizard/toothed lizard, Fey grade, diamond, 3 out of 10, Fey type, metal, Fey quality, fantasy 2. Fey name, sword-toothed dragon lizard, spirit species, stegosauridae/toothed lizard, Fey grade, diamond, 1/10, Fey type, earth/metal, Fey quality, fantasy I. Lin Yuan checked the attributes of the two lizard Feys that freezing cold had summoned. He felt that this diamond I/fantasy 2 sword-toothed lizard dragon was really good. This diamond I/fantasy 2 sword-toothed lizard dragon's dragon species bloodline had been stimulated to an extremely high degree. If it was lucky enough to become a myth breed in the future, it would probably be promoted to a true ancient dragon species. When Freezing Cold saw Lin Yuan looking at the Feys that he had summoned, he immediately put away the two lizard Feys that he had summoned. He then glanced at Lin Yuan with some caution. In other people's Star Web stores, if one summoned a Fey that was above gold without the owner's permission, if it was reported by the owner, one would be punished. The lightest punishment would be the Star Web account being banned for 2 days. A more serious punishment would even be the Star Web account being banned for a month. Freezing Cold did not want to bear such a punishment. The main purpose of Freezing Cold summoning his two Feys was to mock Zhou Luo's main Fey, the Iron Bone Iguana. When Freezing Cold saw that Lin Yuan had no intention of reporting him, he continued to sneer at the Iron Bone Iguana on the ground. His gaze especially swept twice at the protruding sarcoma on the Iron Bone Iguana's neck. He then looked at Zhou Luo contemptuously and whistled. At that moment, Lu Jia, who was sitting next to Lin Yuan, secretly admired Lin Yuan's bearing. Even though he had been silent for 3 years, was used to the fickleness of human nature, and had felt the real world as humble as dust, he still could not control his temper. However, Lin Yuan had a calm expression as if he did not care about Freezing Cold's rudeness and offense. Zhou Luo's face turned livid when he was ridiculed. This undisguised disdain made Zhou Luo feel a sharp pain in his heart. However, Zhou Luo did not use words to fight back. Instead, he looked at Lin Yuan and said firmly, "If you can really give me a future and give me a chance to become stronger, I'm willing to swear on the willpower rune and issue the loyalty oath as a servant." When Zhou Luo said this, an idea suddenly came to his mind. Should I ask if I can get 5 Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls produced by the scorching elemental shellfish? However, when he thought of what the Class 4 creation Master Duan Li's retainer knight had said, that even Master Duan Li could not get the Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls, Zhou Luo forcibly suppressed his hope and request to obtain the Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls. Freezing Cold originally wanted to mock Zhou Luo again, but when he heard Zhou Luo's words, he subconsciously froze. There were a total of 3 kinds of loyalty oaths. The first was the Guardian Oath, the second was the Retainer Oath, and the third was the Servant Oath. Under normal circumstances, King-class experts swear on the willpower rune to issue the loyalty oath. Most of them sign the Guardian Oath, while a few sign the Retainer contract. Very few experts are willing to use the willpower rune to sign the Servant Oath and bet their lives on a faction or a certain person. Although a person can only issue the loyalty oath once in their life. Due to the different types of loyalty oaths, the status and degree of freedom in the faction that they are loyal to will be completely different. The status and degree of freedom in the faction that they will be loyal to will be completely different. First chapter, end of this chapter. Chapter 423. Freezing Cold did not think that Zhou Luo was really crazy. It was extremely difficult for low-level King stage experts to obtain resources, so they were all exceptionally shrewd. Freezing Cold stared at the 2 masked youths for a moment before carefully looking at the empty Star Web store. Freezing Cold couldn't help but suspect that his brother from the Great Axe mercenary group had introduced him to try his luck. A star web store that wanted to see if one could earn high-quality bronze phase through doing odd jobs. Could it have a powerful background? Freezing Cold usually logged onto Star Web and spent half of his time dueling on the Celestial Stairway. The other half of his time was spent in the Celestial Stairway video library, watching duel videos. He rarely browsed the Star Web forums and never paid attention to the gossip of the Star Web stores. At this moment, Freezing Cold felt that after returning to the Huge Axe Mercenaries, I have to ask that brother what the background of this Star Web store is. However, Freezing Cold still felt that he might be thinking too much. Perhaps he should secretly test the waters. When Lin Yuan heard Zhou Luo's words, he was rather surprised that Zhou Luo would not make a direct request. Instead, he said that if he could help him become stronger, he would be willing to swear a loyalty oath to him. Although Zhou Luo did not say it, Lin Yuan also understood that before Zhou Luo used the willpower rune to swear to him, Lin Yuan had to show what he could give Zhou Luo. Just as Lin Yuan was about to give Zhou Luo his promise, he heard Freezing Cold's voice. Even if I can't do it, you should at least show me the bronze/epic lizard species Fey that I requested previously. Upon hearing Freezing Cold mention the bronze/epic lizard species Fey, Lin Yuan was stunned. Zhou Luo's eyes widened in an instant, and his breathing became a little ragged. Lin Yuan ignored Freezing Cold and looked at Zhou Luo. Your Fey affinity direction is also toward lizard Feys, right? Zhou Luo nodded. He waved his hand, and a nearly 4-meter-long lizard with 3 huge bone plates was summoned. The lizard's huge, dark purple bone plates stood up high. The top of the huge bone plate was like a drawing board with black energy swimming around like a spirit snake. The fangs in this lizard Fey's mouth were like the venomous fangs of snake species Feys. However, when the summoned lizard raised its 3 gigantic bone plates and roared, the lizard's body trembled. The sharp teeth in his mouth instantly shot out, and the dense hollow teeth instantly wrapped around his lower jaw. Although it was a lizard species Fey's roar, it was sharper and had the unique pressure of a dragon species Fey. The instant Zhou Luo saw this lizard species Fey, he felt blood rushing to his brain, causing him to feel a little dizzy. This kind of supreme-grade lizard Fey that had awakened the dragon species bloodline at bronze was a legendary rare Fey. He was lucky enough to see such a legendary spirit creature in his lifetime. From what the masked youth had said, it seemed like the Fey was going to be given to him. Lin Yuan realized that after he had summoned the dark snake dragon lizard, Zhou Luo's eyes had never left it. Lin Yuan knew that Zhou Luo really liked this lizard Fey that he had enhanced. Lin Yuan replied. This dark snake dragon lizard can be considered a small supreme-grade Fey. The exclusive skill, Dark Body, can effectively help the dark snake dragon lizard resist physical damage and enhance its movement speed. At the same time, it can also enhance its dark-type abilities. Since you chose to be loyal to me, this dark snake dragon lizard is the future I'm giving you. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Zhou Luo's heart beat even more violently. An extreme excitement and ecstasy surged in his heart. Although he had guessed it before, he was still in disbelief now. This masked youth actually gave such a supreme-grade bronze/epic Fey to him immediately after he decided to be loyal to him. It was simply a huge sum of money. When Freezing Cold saw this dark snake dragon lizard, he felt that he had successfully given up on a small goal and lost 100 million yuan. He actually gave a supreme-grade Fey like the dark snake dragon lizard just like that. It was given to a king-class expert whose main Fey was pitifully weak and deformed. Freezing Cold felt that this behavior was simply prodigal. If this dark snake dragon lizard was given to him, he would be qualified to go to Ascending Dragon City's Long Family to try his luck with 2 dragon species Feys. At the same time, Freezing Cold could be sure that his understanding of this Star Web Store's background should be wrong. Zhou Luo had slowly calmed down from his excitement. He hurriedly stood up from the stool and respectfully said to Lin Yuan, "My lord, Zhou Luo will be at your disposal in the future." When Lin Yuan heard Zhou Luo's words, the corners of his mouth under the mask hooked up. "Come to the royal capital immediately according to the address I sent you." After you swear with the willpower rune, you can also take this dark snake dragon lizard to nurture as soon as possible. Come to the royal city immediately according to the address I sent you. Once you swear on the willpower rune, you can take this dark snake Japalura and cultivate it as soon as possible. Just as Zhou Luo was about to express his gratitude, Lin Yuan spoke again. Just as Zhou Luo was about to thank him, Lin Yuan said again, the sarcoma on your iron bone iguana's neck is mutating in a good direction. It just so happens that I can solve it for you after you arrive at the royal capital. Upon hearing that, Zhou Luo's body trembled in surprise. At that moment, Zhou Luo was far happier than when he knew he was going to get the dark snake dragon lizard. Zhou Luo could be said to have been dependent on the iron bone iguana since childhood. In order to survive, they had experienced countless life and death situations together. Zhou Luo did not have other fays, so he poured all his feelings into the iron bone iguana. It could be said that the iron bone iguana was equivalent to Zhou Luo's life. Zhou Luo's face was flushed with excitement, and his lips trembled a little. My lord, do you have heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls? Zhou Luo was a little surprised. At that time, Master Duanli had also checked before seeing the iron bone iguana's mutation. However, the youth wearing the strange mask had seen through the true reason for the sarcoma on the iron bone iguana's neck at a glance. Lin Yuan was slightly stunned when he heard Zhou Luo mention the heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. Then, he recalled what Gao Feng had said before about the elemental shellfish being induced to mutate. The elemental pearls produced by the elemental shellfish were also divided into several grades according to the purity of the spirit qi they absorbed. The heavenly maiden grade was the highest grade among the elemental pearls. The elemental pearls in Lin Yuan's hand absorbed the spirit qi in the spirit lock spatial zone. It could be said that the purity was almost 100%, and it was also the best among the heavenly maiden grade pearls. Lin Yuan had always thought that Zhou Luo did not know the cause of the sarcoma on the iron bone iguana's neck, but he did not expect Zhou Luo to know so clearly. Yes, I have some heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls that contain fire element energy produced by the scorching elemental shellfish. Second update asking for monthly tickets, recommendation tickets go and book all button is in the hospital for New Year's Eve this year. Everyone, take care of your health, don't forget to wear a mask. End of this chapter. Chapter 424. When Freezing Cold had seen the purchase with no loss store owner give the dark snake dragon lizard to Zhou Luo, he had lamented that the purchase with no loss store wasn't simple. After all, it was a bronze/epic dark snake dragon lizard. Who knew if the purchase with no loss store owner just happened to have it? However, the spirit qi concentration required for the heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls was something that could only be concocted by a class 4 creation master or above. This also meant that there was at least an advanced class 4 creation master behind this one-star web store. What shocked Freezing Cold even more was that the purchase with no loss store owner was actually willing to use such precious heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls to save this deformed and weak lizard. Freezing Cold had always had deep feelings for the Battle Axe mercenaries. Otherwise, he would not have been willing to swear loyalty to the Battle Axe mercenaries. But at this moment, Freezing Cold couldn't help but think that if he didn't issue an oath of allegiance to the Battle Axe mercenaries with the willpower rune, he would have died. Now, all these good things belong to him, right? At that moment, Lin Yuan's first white-clothed follower recruitment was considered over. Although he had only recruited one white-clothed follower, Zhou Luo, and Zhou Luo's current strength was still very weak, however, Zhou Luo's main fei, the iron bone iguana, had absorbed the pure fire elemental energy in the elemental pearls and completed its mutation. He would receive a huge boost. After the sarcoma on the neck of the iron bone iguana completely mutated and grew a new head. Zhou Luo could rely on the resources earned by the iron bone iguana to support the dark snake dragon lizard and did not need Lin Yuan to worry anymore. Lin Yuan turned his head and said to Lu Jie. Brother Lu, Zhou Luo will be your first warrior from now on. Lu Jie replied in a serious tone. Leave it to me. During this period of time, it could be said that Lu Jia had been watching the people in the manor as they busied themselves with the construction of Sky Castle. But he was the only one who had nothing to do. Now, he could finally shoulder the responsibility and do his part for Sky City and Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan looked at freezing cold and said, "We're about to leave, and you still want to walk around this shop." As he spoke, he opened his Star Web Store's access control. Just when freezing cold was a little embarrassed and wanted to speak, he found that a lot of people suddenly came into the shop, and he knew two of them. These two people were the real big shots. Lin Yuan did not expect that when he opened the purchase with No Loss Store's access control, more than 30 people would rush in at once. At a glance, Lin Yuan realized that most of these 30 people were members of his store's fan club. Lin Yuan immediately knew that the violent-tempered woman must have told her fans about seeing him at the entrance of the store. He had lurked as much as he wanted in his purchase with No Loss Store's fan club. However, he did not expect to be blocked by more than 30 big shots in his Star Web Store. Zhou Luo was originally in a state of pleasant surprise and excitement. He was prepared to log off the Star Web and head to the royal capital at the agreed location. However, by the time Zhou Luo had recovered from his surprise, Zhou Luo was puzzled by the sudden appearance of a house full of people. Could it be that he was too surprised and lost his memory? At that moment, Zhou Luo heard a kind voice by his ear. "I didn't expect to see you again after a day." When Zhou Luo heard this voice, he immediately turned his head. He was a little surprised at first, but he quickly bowed and said. When Zhou Luo heard this voice, he immediately turned his head. The old woman called Master Duanli also looked at Zhou Luo with some surprise. She seemed to be wondering why Zhou Luo would appear in this purchase with No Loss Store. She had discovered Zhou Luo's existence when she entered the store. Could Zhou Luo be related to this Star Web Store? However, Master Duanli immediately denied this idea. If Zhou Luo was really related to this Star Web Store, his main fei would not be such an iron bone iguana. Zhou Luo felt a little scared when Master Duanli sized him up. Since when was he worthy of an intermediate class 4 creation master spending so much effort on him? Zhou Luo quickly found a topic. "Thank you, Master Duanli, for letting your retainer knight give me pointers." Master Duanli kindly patted Zhou Luo's shoulder and said, "Your fei affinity is lizard species phase. Your fei affinity is lizard species phase, and most of them are better at attacking. You might as well find a bronze/flawless power of fence-type lizard species fei to contract first and cultivate more new feis when you have resources in the future." Zhou Luo glanced at Master Duanli gratefully. Zhou Luo knew that Master Duanli wanted to tell him not to cultivate his main fei, the iron bone iguana. As long as the iron bone iguana did not complete its mutation, it would not have the slightest potential. It would also affect the iron bone iguana's original combat ability. However, the iron bone iguana's mutation had been resolved. Zhou Luo looked at the young man wearing a strange mask who was surrounded by the crowd for a long time before speaking to Master Duanli. "Master, my iron bone iguana mutation has been resolved." Master Duanli's kind face flashed with a hint of astonishment. Master Duanli also followed Zhou Luo's gaze and looked into the distance at the young man wearing a strange mask. Zhou Luo had just found out about the iron bone iguana's mutation yesterday, but it had been resolved now. And it was in this small store. The reason for this was self-evident. Lin Yuan felt that he was going to be hollowed out by the big shots in this group. In just a few words, the number of flower brocade pearls that these big shots wanted to buy from him added up to 200. Moreover, there were still new big shots applying to trade with him. Among them, Lin Yuan found that among the big shots in the group, the ones who needed the most flower brocade pearls were not creation masters. This meant that these non-creation master group members either needed so many flower brocade pearls because they had a major faction behind them, or they simply wanted to hoard a batch of goods and sell them at a high price when the flower brocade pearls were in high demand in the future. They were happy middlemen who earned the price difference. Lin Yuan did not agree to trade with these group members for the flower brocade pearls they needed. since Lin Yuan wanted to stabilize the strength of the group's network. The best way was to hold a group welfare auction every once in a while. Things were rare, and satisfying only one mouth at a time was the best choice to deal with these scarce resources. Lin Yuan winked at Lu Jie, who was at the side, and motioned for him to leave with him later. Then, Lin Yuan said to the bigwigs beside him, "Let's go." Sob sob sob, these were the words Button wrote with his cell phone in the hospital. Happy New Year. I also wish everyone good health in the new year. End of this chapter. Chapter 425. If there's anything, you can at me in the group or send me a private message. The group welfare will be available every once in a while. I hope everyone will bid rationally. At that moment, a tall woman standing beside Lin Yuan spoke in a flirtatious manner. Group owner, don't tell me your group welfare will always be the flower brocade pearls. If that's the case, it'll be very boring. When the woman spoke, the men at the side, including Lin Yuan, all had goosebumps. Lin Yuan thought to himself. My goodness, is this the legendary saying of using coaxing to overcome hardness? Lin Yuan cleared his throat and said seriously, since you're bored, let's change it up. The next group welfare will be 10 heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls produced by the scorching elemental shellfish. After saying that, Lin Yuan and Lu Jie looked at each other and left the Star Web store together. The flirtatious, tall woman had a look of astonishment on her face. Was she being molested by someone? There's actually someone who dares to tease me. I'm a woman who's cursed 32 husbands, 16 boyfriends, 27 male best friends, and 81 dubious partners to death. Lin Yuan's words caused the big shots in the purchase with no loss store to burst into an uproar. The next group welfare was actually 10 heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. These 10 heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls were all fire-type elemental pearls produced by the scorching elemental shellfish. However, among the elemental pearls of any attribute of the same purity could be exchanged. As long as one posted the news on Star Web, it was very easy to find the next one. The heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls and the flower brocade pearls were not on the same level. They did not expect to have such an unexpected gain by blocking the group owner in the Star Web store. It seemed that blocking the group owner when there was nothing to do was very beneficial to improving the group welfare. At the same time, many people thought of Lin Yuan's rational bidding and cursed in their hearts. Easy for him to say. One heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearl is enough to make people go crazy. How can we be rational when we take out 10 at once? If we can be rational when facing 10 heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls, then we will be too irrational. In a short while, all the big shots in the purchase with no loss store left. When they left, all of them were rubbing their palms together. Clearly, they were determined to obtain the 10 heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. Freezing Cold was left alone in the shop, weak and pitiful, shivering helplessly. After Lin left the Star Web, he began to ponder. Given the reputation of his purchase with no loss store, it was still a little difficult for him to implement the white-clothed follower plan and recruit king-class experts. This was also why Lin Yuan was willing to take out 10 heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls as group welfare. He was doing this to let this matter spread to Star Web and increase the reputation of his purchase with no loss store. He was also unwilling to sell the heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls on Star Web through blind trading like the flower brocade pearls. The blind trade was just a threshold for him to enter his purchase with no loss store's fan club. After all, one had to pick the big ones to harvest. Only then would it feel good to harvest them. On a huge island that was hit by the waves, even in broad daylight, there was a kind of bright brilliance rising up. This bright brilliance came from the island's land, which was covered with gems of various colors. 8 tall towers with different postures stood on this land paved with gems of various colors. In front of each steeple, 32 chanters knelt on the ground and chanted softly. In front of each of the 32 chanters, there was a leader who was leading them in singing a pious song. The 8 steeples with different postures each had a bridge at the top. The place where the 8 bridge locks converged was a floating garden in the air. There were all kinds of strange-shaped wax figures in the floating garden. These wax figures were not complete and were all a little incomplete. Some wax figures were even completely broken. However, these wax figures seemed to contain some kind of law. Most of the wax figures were fays. Of course, there were also a few humans. Beside each wax figure was a small fountain. The clear water sprayed out from the fountain and landed on the wax figures, making the wax figures' color and luster more vivid. When these wax figures' color and luster became vivid, that kind of law aura became a little more intense. The law in the wax figures only became more intense for a moment, and it seemed as though these law aura were stripped from these wax figures into the clear water sprays. The clear water fell back into the fountain, and the cycle repeated. In the middle of the floating garden was a huge round table. 8 chairs were placed beside the round table, and they were arranged in 2 rows, sitting on an equal footing. At that moment, there was a figure sitting on each chair. These 8 figures had different figures, and they all had monstrous might. However, the might of these 7 figures had all landed on one of them. The person who was being pointed at had long golden hair that hung down to her shoulders. Her eyes were tightly shut, and she had a solemn expression. All of a sudden, the golden-haired woman's tightly shut eyes opened, revealing the golden pupils inside. There seemed to be war after war going on in the golden pupils. The glory and crushing defeat in the war did not shock the golden-haired woman's golden pupils at all. The golden pupils looked at the other 7 figures without the slightest emotion, and a pitiful and mocking voice echoed. All of you made a decision together, and it is just my Tower of War's implementation plan. Speaking of Ching Wu, this spy in the Radiance Federation was planted by 3rd page Eternal Sin. Not only was it useless, but it also alerted the enemy and ruined my plan. As soon as 7th page War's voice fell, a few sickly laughter rang out. He, 7th page War, Ching Wu's identity being exposed has nothing to do with me. Don't drag me into this. The person who spoke was a short-haired woman with empty eyes. However, the occasional glint in her empty eye sockets seemed to contain all the sins in the world. 7th page War glanced at the short-haired woman, ignored her words, and said, "The Radiance Federation's sacred source life form. I'll take back the Radiance Federation's sacred source life form immediately." The short-haired woman with empty eyes was about to say something when she heard a pleasant voice coming from the side. It was just that this Xing Taiyin came from a huge lump of strange flesh and blood. "Sister 3rd page, your mouth stinks. Baby, I can smell it sitting here. Will you die if you don't target others?" The harsh words spoken by this purest voice were like the truth, convincing from the bottom of one's heart. The evil glint in the short-haired woman's empty eye sockets kept flickering as she laughed coquettishly. Second update. Happy New Year to everyone again. It's the new year, and I wanted to post more updates. Take over the hospital when button is discharged. I will give everyone a wave of updates that will not be inferior to the previous one. Last update. Heart. End of this chapter. Chapter 426. 5th page Truth. You wrap yourself in a layer of rotten meat all day long. Can you still smell the stench? Why don't you let me make this rotten meat into a small black house that will lock you up forever? As she spoke, the short-haired woman's face became ferocious, making her delicate facial features become terrifying. At that moment, a light cough made 3rd page Eternal Sin and 5th page Truth immediately turn serious. A girl wearing thick glasses and looking like a girl next door stood up and said as if she was singing. In the Radiance Federation, the life parasitized by my gardener konjac seeds can cooperate with 7th page War's operation. 7th page War's voice was mixed with pity and mockery, tinged with a hint of disgust. 2nd page Revival, I don't need you to cooperate with me. The girl next door girl looked at 7th page War with some grievance, and the tone of her chant suddenly changed to become like a mournful song. I'm also afraid that 7th page War's War Knell and Radiance Chariot will be cracked again by the Moon Empress. At that point, the girl next door girl seemed to have a sudden realization. Oh, I forgot. 7th page War's sacred source life forms, War Knell and Radiance Chariot, have evolved. Then 7th page war will take back the Radiance Federation's sacred source life form alone. After saying that, 2nd page revival changed the topic. He looked at the cold man sitting next to 3rd page eternal sin, who was twisting like a snake. The laws and the 300 wax figures in the sky garden have been washed clean by the baptism spring. The materials for a new batch of wax figures have also been prepared. 8th page death, make a new batch of wax figures as soon as possible. The cold man, who was twisting like a snake, shrugged and revealed a neurotic smile on his face. However, he did not laugh. His mouth was wide open, and he silently said, "Okay." Lin Yuan was sitting on the water rhinoceros leather sofa in the hall, flipping through his phone. He was going to enter Star Web to check his gains from the blind trade later, as well as the 30-flower brocade pearls auction in the group welfare. Lin Yuan opened the offline forum on his phone, which he had not been on for a long time. The idiotic netizen who found that he had been bitten by the ghost shadow-bristled spider sent him a message again. "A person like you will definitely fail the Fey observation and spiritual ingredient analysis exams." Lin Yuan curled his lips when he saw this message. What exactly did I send last time? How could he encounter such a vicious curse? Lin Yuan tried to recall and realized that he could not remember at all. However, Lin Yuan wasn't convinced when it came to cheating. When Lin Yuan had taken the Creation Master exam, he had scored 100 points in the Fey Observation and Spiritual Ingredient Analysis exams. Although he had relied on Genius back then, he now often wore Genius Tool Transformation Mask and shared the knowledge that Genius had learned. He had already faintly integrated that knowledge. Therefore, it was impossible for him to fail the Spiritual Ingredient Analysis and Fey Observation exams. During this period, he was also frantically learning some knowledge that high-class creation masters needed to master. Lin Yuan had deliberately cultivated his learning habit. No matter how busy he was, he had to learn something new every day. This was because the knowledge that he had learned would become knowledge after being stored in his mind for a long time. Lin Yuan thought for a moment and replied to the idiotic netizen who had been bitten by the ghost shadow-bristled spider. "Even if I don't know anything about spiritual ingredient analysis and Fey observation, I can still pass." In just a moment, the netizen who had been bitten by the ghost shadow-bristled spider replied. "How is that possible? You're just guessing." When Lin Yuan saw the message, he replied. "In any case, be it spiritual ingredient analysis or Fey observation, the multiple-choice questions are 60 points. My ears are good, and I can hear other people's multiple-choice answers." "Then how did you hear the answer to the multiple-choice question?" "How do I choose ABCD?" Lin Yuan didn't even think about it before replying. A is 3 strokes, C is 1 stroke, B and D are both 2 strokes, but D will be faster than B. After Lin Yuan sent the message, he noticed that the netizen who had been bitten by the ghost shadow-bristled spider had sent 6 points and replied, "I'll try it during the next exam." After saying that, he no longer paid any attention to her. Lin Yuan was a little dumbfounded that someone actually believed such words. If you can hear the sound of one person writing among so many others in the examination room, you will be able to hear the sound of one person writing. Then you'd be an immortal. Moreover, even if you could hear it clearly, what if your brother in front of you got all the multiple-choice questions wrong? That would really be a tragedy. He could imagine that the netizen who had been bitten by the ghost shadow-bristled spider would scold him in the future. Therefore, he decided to blacklist the netizen who had been bitten by the ghost shadow-bristled spider. Lin Yuan felt that he was simply too smart. He had taken precautions. At this time, in a big house, a short-haired girl was holding a pen and writing in a small notebook. A is 3 strokes, C is 1 stroke, B and D are both 2 strokes, D is faster than B. After she finished writing, the short-haired girl felt that the spiritual material analysis and spiritual material observation courses, which she had been seriously reviewing, were a bit of an eyesore. At this moment, someone knocked on the door. The short-haired girl was about to open the door when she saw a head poking in. The short-haired girl said angrily, "Dad, why are you monitoring my studies again?" The middle-aged man was holding a few pieces of clothes in his hand and said with some grievance. Baby, your mom asked me to take you out for dinner. How could I possibly monitor your studies? Monitoring your studies is your mom's job. I'm only responsible for earning money to support the family. The short-haired girl couldn't help but roll her eyes. I get scolded by my mom 800 times a year, and at least 750 of those times are because you snitched on me. The middle-aged man quickly said righteously, don't talk nonsense. Out of the 800 times you get scolded this year, 60 of those times are because you didn't wear a headgear in front of your mom. I'm not snitching on you. When the short-haired girl saw the bumblebee headgear in the middle-aged man's hand, she immediately pointed at her short hair in exasperation. Dad, the ghost shadow bristled spider's venom has long been detoxified, and my hair has grown out. I'm not bald, so don't give me a headgear. At this point, the short-haired girl suddenly said in a mysterious tone. Dad, I remember that you need heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls, right? I can get them, but you have to promise me that you won't snitch on me to my mom again. When the middle-aged man heard that, he couldn't help but say with a smile, Baby is the best. Baby is the best. Daddy is happy that baby has this kind of heart. The short-haired girl felt very helpless. Dad, I'm already 16 years old. I'm no longer a child. The middle-aged man said lovingly as he tidied up the books on the table. Baby, you've grown up. You know how to make Dad happy. At this moment, the short-haired girl only felt that it would have been better if she had been bitten to death by the ghost shadow-bristled spider. She wouldn't have had to suffer this anger. First chapter. Happy first day, end of this chapter. Chapter 427. Lin Yuan logged onto Star Web and checked the gains from the blind trade of the 10-flower brocade pearls. Even though Lin Yuan had already expected it, he was still taken aback at first glance. The number of mid-grade strange flames obtained from the blind trade of the 10-flower brocade pearls had reached 440. Previously, Lin Yuan had used 10-flower brocade pearls to exchange for 100 mid-grade strange flames, which was higher than the market price. But now, the price of the flower brocade pearls was more than 4 times higher than the original market price. This made Lin Yuan feel like he had harvested ginseng from the leeks. In his Star Web store, Lin Yuan deliberately spread the news that the next fan group welfare was 10 heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. At that time, the blind trade had just begun. It was unknown how many of the 440 mid-grade strange flames had been attracted by the heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. After the blind trade ended, another 10 bigwigs entered Lin Yuan's fan group. The addition of the new members made the purchase with no loss fan group even livelier. The 30-flower brocade pearls in the group welfare had also allowed Lin Yuan to harvest a lot of precious resources. The resources that Lin Yuan needed to build his faction Sky City could not be so simple. The resources that Lin Yuan had obtained through the group welfare auction allowed him to have an abundance of precious resources in his hands. Every time the bigwigs increased the price, it was equivalent to a screening. After several rounds of price increases, they could ensure that the resources in Lin Yuan's hands were absolutely high quality. Lin Yuan planned to store these resources in the Platinum Phase storage box. They would wait until the floating island whale hatched in June of this year in preparation for building a Sky City on its back. Lin Yuan quietly displayed the 10 heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls produced by the scorching elemental shellfish in his fan group. He planned to choose a time to auction these 10 heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls as group welfare. It was also considered fulfilling his promise. Then, Lin Yuan logged out of Star Web. After logging out of Star Web, Lin Yuan wore the glasses that Genius Tool Transformation had transformed into as usual. He started to read books about creation masters. Wearing Genius Tool Transformation glasses to read, Lin Yuan could clearly imprint the knowledge in his mind. Even if Lin Yuan wore Genius Tool Transformation glasses, he still could not reach the level of Genius Photographic Memory. However, Lin Yuan only needed to read it 3 times and could generally remember it. As he read, Lin Yuan seemed to have an epiphany in his mind that became clearer and clearer. It seemed that all the knowledge in this epiphany was closely related. However, just as this comprehension became clearer and clearer, Lin Yuan found that there was a faint membrane on this layer of comprehension. No matter what he did, he could not break it. Lin Yuan did not feel sad because he could not break through the outer membrane of this comprehension. Lin Yuan was very happy. According to the increasingly clear comprehension in his heart, if this comprehension condensed into a willpower rune, it should be related to knowledge. For several days, Lin Yuan had locked himself in his room to read. For the next few days, Lin Yuan locked himself in his room and flipped through books. However, the comprehension in his mind was still stagnant. This also made him give up the intention to continue burying his head in the book in the house. Lin had God's soul Lin Yuan, dragon, and had mountain pearls. You had star had herring dragon. The dragon had pearls had star had jade. The listening herring dragon chamber of commerce had become an empty shelf. Listen was still not in a hurry to make any big moves. Instead, he was going to accumulate some items made of completely jade-textured powder and directly reshape the listening herring dragon chamber of commerce's business direction. At the same time, Listen was also using Fei Qianqiang as a spy. He planned to devour the online and offline resources that the Iron Arm Chamber of Commerce had given up bit by bit. If a Chamber of Commerce wanted to develop to the extreme, the best way was to set foot in every field. It had intertwined in various fields and formed a huge business empire. Zhou Luo had also come to the royal capital in the past few days. He had sworn a willpower rune to Lin Yuan, issued an allegiance oath, and become Lin Yuan's servant. At the same time, after Lin Yuan poured 5 heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls into it, the iron bone iguana's second head finally grew out. The iron bone iguana's new head was fire-type. The new head directly activated the fire-type energy in the iron bone iguana's body, which was originally earth-type. The fire-type and earth-type energy fused and turned into scorching lava. The iron bone iguana also mutated into a lava iguana under such elemental fusion. Lin Yuan also contracted the bronze/epic lizard species Fei, the dark snake dragon lizard, that had awakened the dragon species bloodline, for Zhou Luo. There were only a few days left before the active phase of the dimensional rift. Therefore, Lin Yuan felt that it was time to go to Indigo Azure City to see what tricks the Zheng family had in the offshore coastal resources that they wanted to seize from the listening herring chamber of commerce. Lin Yuan did not intend to let Endless Summer follow him to Indigo Azure City this time. He only intended to bring Lu Jie, the mother of Bloodbath, and the recruited Zhou Luo, as well as Listen, to investigate. However, when Lin Yuan found out that Endless Summer had killed a pinnacle king-class expert while protecting Listen, Lin Yuan decided that it would be safer to bring Endless Summer on this trip to Indigo Azure City in addition to his path protector, the mother of Bloodbath. After all, Indigo Azure City was the Zheng family's base camp. Early the next morning, Lin Yuan ordered a platinum flying fei, the long-backed swan. Lin Yuan originally wanted to order a divine travel black swallow. Although it was very uncomfortable to fly on the divine travel black swallow, it was much faster than the long-backed swan. However, the divine travel black swallow was a petite flying fei that could only carry 2 people at most. This time, Lin Yuan's group of 6 needed a larger flying fei. Therefore, Lin Yuan chose the long-backed swan that balanced speed and comfort. On the back of the long-backed swan, Lin Yuan, Lu Jie, the mother of Bloodbath, Endless Summer, and Listen sat cross-legged. Zhou Luo stood respectfully at the side, guarding the 5 people who were sitting cross-legged like a guard. Listen told Lin Yuan about the recent news he had obtained about Indigo Azure City. I recently found someone to check the shallow nearshore sea in Indigo Azure City that I had never paid attention to before. As a result, I lost contact with the 2 experts I sent. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan frowned slightly and asked, "What's the strength of the 2 experts you sent?" "What are the strength of the 2 experts you sent?" Listen said with a bitter smile. "Currently, the strongest combat power in the listening heron chamber of commerce is Fei Qianqiang, but I don't want to use him as a spy. Therefore, I sent 2 listening heron chamber of commerce experts with platinum feis. After sending them out, they only reported to me once, and there was no more news. I'm guessing they're already dead. Lin Yuan knew that the shallow sea controlled by the listening heron Chamber of Commerce in Indigo Azure City was not safe. If he did not use his trump cards, his strength should actually be similar to the 2 spirit chi professionals with platinum phase that Listen had sent out. 2 spirit chi professionals with platinum phase went to the shallow sea to scout for information without going deep into the sea. It was impossible for him to have been attacked by a marine fae. Therefore, most of the 2 spirit chi professionals with platinum phase had died at the hands of other spirit chi professionals. At that moment, Lin Yuan heard Listen speak again. Young master, the first message they sent me said that there are broken corpses of gold water world dimensional creatures on the coast. I think there should be a water world dimensional rift near this coastal sea. Lin Yuan had always needed the flesh of gold water world dimensional lifeforms. However, after hearing Listen's news, Lin Yuan was not happy at all. Instead, his brows furrowed even more. Lin Yuan said in a deep voice. It doesn't matter if this shallow nearshore sea is a dragon's pool or a tiger's den, or if someone is coveting it. I want to see what's hidden in it. Second update. Happy first day hehe. On the 26th, I'll record the top 30 fans. Add the top 30 fans to the book group. In order to thank everyone for their support, there will be small gifts. Hehe. End of this chapter. Chapter 428. Lin Yuan was very puzzled at that moment. How could the broken corpses of gold water world dimensional lifeforms appear on the shore? After the water world dimensional creatures died, their flesh would quickly rot and sink to the bottom of the sea. The marine phase in the sea didn't only consist of animal-type marine phase, but there were also plant-type and insect-type marine phase. After the flesh and blood of the water world dimensional creatures rotted, it was extremely stinky and poisonous. Most of the marine phase did not like to eat animal phase. However, the flesh of these dead and decayed water world dimensional lifeforms was a gluttonous feast for the plant species and insect species phase among the marine phase. Therefore, it was very unusual for the flesh of these gold water world dimensional creatures to be discovered on the shore. The only possibility that Lin Yuan could think of was that the gold water world dimensional life form had been killed very close to the shore. The sudden bombardment left the flesh and blood of the gold water world dimensional creature's body with extremely strong cell activity. The flesh of the gold water world dimensional lifeforms with extremely strong cellular activity was washed to the shore by the waves. It was also coincidentally discovered by the 2 spirit chi professionals with platinum phase that Listen had sent out. At the time of discovery, the cell activity in the flesh and blood of these gold water world dimensional creatures had completely disappeared. Corruption had begun, but it was not yet complete. He had personally witnessed the decaying speed of the water world dimensional lifeform's flesh. When the 2 spirit chi professionals with platinum phase that Listen had sent out saw the gold water world dimensional lifeform's flesh on the shore, they felt a chill down their spines. This gold water world dimensional creature should have just died. The marine phase in the coastal waters were weaker, and it was very difficult to completely block the water world dimensional rift. Therefore, the water world dimensional creatures would attack the cities on the shore. This required the spirit chi professionals living near the coastal sea to take action against the water world dimensional lifeforms that were wreaking havoc on the shore. However, what puzzled Lin Yuan the most was that the people in Indigo Azure City did not notice the water world dimensional rift at all. Lin Yuan pondered for a moment and asked Listen. Are there many fays that can effectively resist the water world dimensional rift in this coastal sea controlled by the listening heron Chamber of Commerce? Did any water world dimensional creatures attack the shore previously? Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Listen immediately answered. Back then, my grandfather and father chose to use all of the listening heron Chamber of Commerce's resources to control this shallow nearshore sea because there are many shellfish fays in this shallow nearshore sea. The shells, flesh, and pearls contained in shellfish fays are all excellent resources. Shellfish fays don't have strong offensive abilities. Due to the large number of shellfish fays, the plankton in the water are all plundered by them. Therefore, most of the marine fays in this sea region rely on shellfish fays to survive. Among them, the beaked spiny skin fish and the shell-eating armored turtles are the most numerous. However, the beak-billed spiny skin fish and the shell-eating armored turtles are only ferocious to the shell fays. They can only be hunted by the water world dimensional creatures. However, due to the large number of beaked spiny fish, there is also a large school of tail-cutting shadow sharks that feed on the beaked spiny fish. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan knew that this coastal sea could be said to be very dangerous. However, this coastal sea was destined to be unable to effectively resist the emergence of the fays in the water world dimensional rift. The tail-cutting shadow sharks were a very special group of ferocious fays in the sea. The existence of the tail-cutting shadow sharks meant that there would be no large predators in this sea region. This was because the tail-cutting shadow sharks would take the lead in eliminating all life that could pose a threat to them in their territory. If there were tail-cutting shadow sharks in this sea region, there would still be large predators. That meant that this group of tail-cutting shadow sharks had been killed by the large predators. There was only one school of tail-cutting shadow sharks in the sea, even if they were individually strong. Even if the tail-cutting shadow sharks were extremely strong, due to their limited numbers, the suppression on a large number of water world dimensional creatures was too small. Even if these tail-cutting shadow sharks went crazy, they would not be able to eliminate less than half of the water world dimensional creatures. At that moment, Lin Yuan heard Listen continue to speak. In the early years, water world dimensional creatures would invade this coastal sea once or twice a month, Lin Yun said with a smile. As long as the water world dimensional rift opens, this coastal sea is destined to not be peaceful. At this point, Listen's tone became extremely solemn. However, 3 years ago, there have been no water world dimensional creatures invading this coastal sea. After listening to Listen's words, Lin Yuan felt that everything had become even stranger. Lin Yuan thought for a long time but could not figure it out. It seemed that he had to go to the coastal sea controlled by the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce to have a good exploration. Only then would he know what secrets were hidden in this coastal sea. Lin Yuan looked at the mother of Bloodbath and Endless Summer. Endless Summer, mother of Bloodbath, the two of you will hide in the dark when we arrive at Indigo Azure City. If no one is in danger, you don't have to make a move. Lin Yuan knew that the 2 spirit chi professionals with platinum phase that Listen had sent out had died. He felt that the Zheng family was not the only one eyeing the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's shallow coastal sea. The Zheng family had already sent people to the royal capital to attack the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce and had even sent pinnacle king-class experts to kill Listen. This showed that the Zheng family was determined to obtain the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's shallow coastal sea. There was no need for the Zheng family to kill these 2 spirit chi professionals who had been investigating the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's shallow coastal sea. These 2 spirit chi professionals with platinum phase had most likely investigated a secret that absolutely could not be known by others. They wanted to kill the 2 spirit chi professionals with platinum phase and not let them have a chance to convey the news to Listen. This was at least at Fei Qianqiong's level. The Zheng family was in the light, while Lin Yuan was in the dark. The Zheng family might be strong in the light. However, the Zheng family was Lin Yuan's visible enemy. Often, the enemy in the dark was the most terrifying. Just like young Master Zheng in the royal capital, who had lost news of a pinnacle king-class expert. He would probably not be able to sleep well during this period. What made Lin Yuan feel a little troublesome now was that besides the Zheng family, there was really someone watching the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's shallow coastal sea in the dark. In that case, the enemy in the dark was an unknown hidden danger. After the Zheng family had attacked the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce, this hidden force still had designs on this shallow coastal sea. This meant that this hidden force definitely had the confidence to contend with the Zheng family. The listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's shallow coastal sea did not have legs and could not run. Without the support of absolute strength, it was simply impossible to snatch food from the Zheng family's mouth. First more, end of this chapter. Chapter 429. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, the mother of Bloodbath replied, "If we encounter an Emperor-class expert's sneak attack, it will be very difficult to stop them immediately while hiding in the dark. Big Sister Summer is not good at concealment, so let Big Sister Summer hide in the dark. Although the law I control is blood, my race and exclusive skill are extremely good at concealment. Even if I am beside you, Emperor-class experts will not discover me." After hearing the mother of Bloodbath's words, Endless Summer fiddled with the bell hidden in the pink and purple hydrangea on the bracelet and said, "Little Sister Blood and I will stay close and far away. Little Sister Shue and I will stay close and one from afar. Little Sister Shue will protect your safety. While I am watching you from a distance, I will also see how many eyes are watching you in the dark." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan nodded. When the mother of Bloodbath saw Lin Yuan nod, the corners of its originally expressionless mouth hooked into a happy arc relying on the Path Protector contract between it and Lin Yuan. It spoke in Lin Yuan's mind in a voice that only he could hear. "I am your Path Protector. Your safety is the top priority." Lin Yuan's heart warmed when he heard the mother of Bloodbath's words. In fact, during this period of time, Lin Yuan had almost forgotten that the mother of Bloodbath was his Path Protector. However, the mother of Bloodbath had been silently fulfilling its duty as a Path Protector. At that moment, the mother of Bloodbath on the long-backed swan's back flashed with a scarlet luster. Looking at this scarlet luster, it only felt as though they were looking at a sticky pool of blood. Everyone could clearly feel the long-backed swan trembling faintly, obviously terrified to the extreme. If Endless Summer had not used its aura to control the long-backed swan when the mother of Bloodbath had transformed, the long-backed swan would probably have fallen to the ground in fear from the mother of Bloodbath's aura. The mother of Bloodbath was a type of tarantula that could suppress the long-backed swan in terms of rank. Apart from rank suppression, it also had a kind of racial deterrence. The mother of Bloodbath shrank to the size of 1 centimeter, just like when it had first become Lin Yuan's Path Protector. However, the mother of Bloodbath did not land on the leaf-shaped diamond face storage box hanging on Lin Yuan's chest. Instead, it landed in Lin Yuan's hair and hid there. Lin Yuan, Lu Jia, Endless Summer, and Listen already knew that the mother of Bloodbath was a suzerain/myth breed fae. Only Zhou Luo, who was on the long-backed swan's back, did not know the mother of Bloodbath's identity. Now, Zhou Luo saw the mother of Bloodbath turn from human form into a scarlet spider and hide in Lin Yuan's hair. His eyes immediately widened and he gulped down a mouthful of saliva as he sighed inwardly. How many sacrifices did he have to make to have the opportunity to join such a strong force? This was at least a legendary suzerain/myth 2 fae, and it was actually right beside him. Moreover, according to the conversation between the spider-like woman and the abnormally gentle woman, Lin Fan had a strange feeling. Zhou Luo wasn't sure if the other woman was a spirit creature, but she was definitely an emperor-grade spirit creature. While Zhou Luo was still in shock, he hadn't expected to be called out by Lin Yuan. "Zhou Luo, you don't have to move with us after we reach Indigo Azure City." When Zhou Luo heard Lin Yuan's words, he immediately put away his shock and prepared to listen to Lin Yuan's instructions. At the same time, Zhou Luo was ready to face danger. When he issued the loyalty oath and made the servant oath, Zhou Luo knew that his life no longer belonged to him when he obtained resources. But immediately afterward, Lin Yuan's words gave Zhou Luo an indescribable feeling. After your iron bone iguana used 5 heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls produced by the scorching elemental shellfish, it grew a second head and mutated into a lava iguana. When it mutated into a lava iguana, its grade also increased from Platinum 9 to Platinum X. I think the lava iguana's dragon species bloodline is only one flawless dragon's mouth orchid flower away from being stimulated. I happen to have one here. Take it and let the lava iguana stimulate the dragon species bloodline in its body. Lin Yuan had used the 30-flower brocade pearls to exchange for 2 flawless dragon's mouth orchid flowers in the purchase with No Lost Stores fan club. Flawless dragon's mouth orchid flowers were not considered very rare on the market. They could be auctioned off in the Star Web Rare Life Form Pavilion for nearly $1 million Radiance. After giving Zhou Luo the flawless dragon's mouth orchid flowers, the lava iguana had a high chance of breaking through its grade limit when it stimulated the dragon species bloodline in its body. It would increase its grade from Platinum X to Diamond I. This increase in grade would allow the lava iguana to become a diamond/fantasy breed fae. It was tantamount to letting Zhou Luo step from the level of a low-level king-class expert to the level of a middle-level king-class expert. This way, Zhou Luo would be able to complete the mission better. But to be honest, if Lin Yuan only had that epic dragon's mouth orchid flower, he wouldn't have been able to kill it. Lin Yuan really would not let Zhou Luo use this epic dragon's mouth orchid flower. The epic dragon's mouth orchid flower was already the top dragon's mouth orchid flower that had appeared on the market. This kind of thing could not be bought with radiance dollars. Lin Yuan was more inclined to let the white-clothed servants obtain resources on their own when nurturing them. Otherwise, Lin Yuan would throw all the resources at these white-clothed servants to improve their strength. It was not that Lin Yuan could not afford it. In that case, Lin Yuan might as well change his name from Lin Yuan to Big Head Lin. Lin Yuan would not do something that was completely disproportionate between the effort and the reward. However, resources like the flawless dragon's mouth orchid were harmless to him. Although the flawless dragon's mouth orchid was harmless to Lin Yuan, it made Zhou Luo feel moved like a raging wave in his heart. Previously, Lin Yuan had invested the bronze/epic dark snake dragon lizard and 5 heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls. Although Zhou Luo was grateful, he was not moved. This was because Zhou Luo had exchanged such resources with a servant oath. However, the flawless dragon's mouth orchid was not. In the past, Zhou Luo would need to accumulate 2 years to accumulate this flawless dragon's mouth orchid. Now that the iron bone iguana had mutated into a lava iguana, Zhou Luo's strength had improved. In Zhou Luo's opinion, he would need at least 8 months to earn the money for the flawless dragon's mouth orchid. But now, the organization that he had devoted all of his loyalty to had given him such a gift before he had even contributed to his first mission. This made Zhou Luo feel even more grateful. Lin Yuan said as he looked at Listen. Listen, how do you think the Zheng family's young master Zheng will feel if he finds out that you suddenly returned to the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's old mansion in Indigo Azure City? The second chapter. Everyone, please wear a mask and take care of your body. End of chapter. Chapter 430. When Listen heard Lin Yuan's words, he frowned slightly and pondered. After thinking for a while, Listen suddenly laughed and said, "The Zheng family is a veteran faction. As one of the 3 major factions in Indigo Azure City, it can be said that they can cover the sky with one hand. If I'm the Zheng family's young master Zheng, then I suddenly find that the target I want to kill has returned to Indigo Azure City from the royal capital alive. Even if the Zheng family can confirm that the Pinnacle King-class expert they sent is dead, they will at most suspect that this Pinnacle King-class expert's death is related to me and cannot be sure. The Zheng family is determined to get the resources of the shallow coastal sea, so they should send another expert to kill me." Lin Yuan heard Listen's words and asked. "Then what kind of expert do you think the Zheng family will send to make a move on you?" In Lin Yuan's opinion, the Zheng family would definitely send an expert to make a move on Listen. However, the main purpose was not to kill Listen immediately. Instead, it was to prove whether the death of the Pinnacle King-class expert they had sent was related to Listen. To put it bluntly, this was a kind of test. To be able to silently kill a Pinnacle King-class expert with a Diamond X/Fantasy 4 Fae, this person had at least the combat power of an Emperor-class expert. Among the veteran factions, no veteran faction would casually send out an Emperor-class expert. Before the Zheng family could determine the strength of the Emperor-class expert who had killed the Pinnacle King-class expert, the Zheng family would definitely not let their Emperor-class expert easily take risks. The loss of a Pinnacle King-class expert must have been very painful for the Zheng family. Therefore, in Lin Yuan's opinion, the strength of the King-class expert sent by the Zheng family should not be too strong. At most, it would be at Fei Qianqiong's level. In this test, the Zheng family must have been prepared to lose a King-class expert. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's question, Listen answered. It should be either a king class or an emperor class expert. The possibility of a king class expert is higher. After saying that, Listen paused for a moment before continuing. But I know that young master won't let the Zheng family kill me anyway. Lin Yuan raised his brows and said, That's natural. Of course. Not to mention how much resources Lin Yuan had invested in Listen. If Listen was killed by the Zheng family, then Lin Yuan's previous efforts would be in vain. Moreover, Listen had issued an allegiance oath to Lin Yuan, so he was a part of Lin Yuan's faction. Lin Yuan would not allow the Zheng family to lay their hands on the members of his faction. Listen, since you've returned to Indigo Azure City from the royal capital, you naturally have to return to the old mansion. After speaking to Listen, he turned to Endless Summer, who was sitting cross-legged beside him. Endless Summer, when Listen returns to the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's old mansion, just like when you were in the royal capital, protect him in secret. Endless Summer nodded in response. Endless Summer raised her fair hand and shook the diamond face storage box hanging on her wrist as she said, All right, let's go. There are still 2 corpses of high-grade dark type phase here. I'll let little sister Blood do the work and split up the spiritual ingredients. Upon hearing Endless Summer's words, Lin Yuan recalled how the mother of Bloodbath had split the pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 Crow's corpse. Not a single bit of it was wasted. The mother of Bloodbath pondered for a moment and said, Since they are 2 high-grade dark-type fantasy breed phase, their willpower should be stronger. When I return to the Imperial City, I'll carefully divide it again and see if I can use the blood rules to control the blood. Stimulate the cell activity of these 2 high-grade dark-type fantasy breed phase and preserve the willpower in their minds as much as possible. Riding the wind, he got closer and closer to Indigo Azure City. Slowly, Lin Yuan felt that the surrounding temperature was much higher than when he was in the royal capital. The air on the sea also carried a faint saltiness of the sea breeze. On the back of the platinum long-backed swan, Lin Yuan could already faintly see the outline of Indigo Azure City. Indigo Azure City was a huge coastal city. Even though Lin Yuan was high in the sky, he could only see 1/10 or 2/10 of this huge city. Lin Yuan flipped his hand, and a palm-sized light blue dragon tongue-shaped flower appeared. Lin Yuan said as he handed the flawless dragon's mouth orchid to Zhou Luo. Let your lava iguana complete its evolution first, then wait for me to contact you. After saying that, he pondered for a while and took out a tube of dark gold blood. Take this tube of diamond dragon species Fey blood too. If the flawless dragon's mouth orchid can't stimulate the lava iguana's dragon species bloodline, this tube of diamond dragon species Fey blood should have a supportive effect. The activation of the dragon species bloodline by a Fey would occasionally be accompanied by some unknown changes. Lin Yuan gave Zhou Luo an extra tube of diamond dragon species Fey blood, which could be considered a precaution. Zhou Luo said as he accepted Lin Yuan's gift. Young master, 1 day is enough for the lava iguana to awaken its dragon-type bloodline and advance. If you don't contact me after that, I'll go to the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's coastal sea to inquire about the news. Lin Yuan suddenly realized that Zhou Luo's eyes actually had a resolute emotion in this short period of time. Moreover, now that Zhou Luo knew the purpose of his trip, he took the initiative to undertake the mission. This situation showed that Zhou Luo was no longer just devoted and loyal to Lin Yuan. Alright, but since there are people secretly watching that shallow coastal sea, don't go there to ask for information and put yourself in danger. There's a guild alliance branch near that coastal sea. Go there and investigate. You should be able to gain something. In this world, apart from the true top factions that had their own information network, the Guild Alliance's information was undoubtedly the most comprehensive. After all, there were spirit chi professionals everywhere in the Guild Alliance, and many of them were local spirit chi professionals in Indigo Azure City. These local spirit chi professionals lived in Indigo Azure City all year round. Perhaps someone would know some information that was useful to him. At that moment, Listen suddenly thought of something. Young Master, every 10 years before the rioting period of the Dimensional Rift, there will be a grand Indigo Azure Sea Market in Indigo Azure City. Almost all the local factions and individuals in Indigo Azure City will sell the spiritual ingredients and phase they have collected in the ocean over the past 10 years at this sea market. There are many rare and strange things in the Indigo Azure Sea Market. There will always be people who go to pick up the leftovers, but even Class 4 creation masters will make a mistake. The first time, end of this chapter. Chapter 431. Listen paused for a moment. I believe we should be able to find the high-level marine dimensional creature flesh that young master wanted in this sea market. Lin Yuan's eyes lit up. He took out a mask engraved with the majestic Sky City pattern from the diamond phase storage box and wore it. The Zheng family will probably make a move on you on the night you return. Big Brother Lu and I will openly visit you at the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's old mansion the next morning. Then, you'll take us to the Indigo Azure Sea Market. As soon as he said that, the mother of Bloodbath, Endless Summer, and Lu Jie put on a strange mask with clouds carved on their faces. At that moment, Lin Yuan's eyes behind the mask revealed a sharpness that had never been revealed before. It was time for Sky City, which had never shown its brilliance, to appear before the various major powers. In a study room filled with all sorts of platinum phase and plants, Lin Yun was standing at the center of the room. A middle-aged man with malicious eyes was standing in front of the table. Suddenly, the sinister-eyed middle-aged man fiercely kicked the kneeling young man with the same sinister-eyed expression and shouted angrily. How did I, Zheng Jianglu, give birth to such a stupid son? The sinister-looking youth, who was kicked by the sinister-looking middle-aged man, lowered his head and did not dare to make a sound. At this moment, the old man standing beside the sinister-looking middle-aged man looked at the sinister-looking young man on the ground with a pained expression and said, Master, Wenba already knows his mistake. Moreover, an expert who can kill old cow without causing a commotion is at least an emperor-tier expert. It's useless for you to blame Wenba. The old man's back was ramrod straight, and when he spoke, he seemed to have a cedar-like aura. Upon hearing the old man's words, the sinister-looking youth on the ground hurriedly replied. Father, listen to Grandpa Jiao. What can I do if an Emperor Realm expert attacks Elder Nyo? Besides, I asked Elder Nyo to make a move against the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's listen because you said you had second young master's support. I wanted to quickly complete the task you gave me. That's good too. Our three lineages' efforts over the years can finally be repaid. Zheng Jianglu, the middle-aged Zheng Jianglu, wanted to kick his son again when he heard that his son was so eloquent and found so many excuses. But when he heard the last part, he forcibly stopped himself. Over the past few years, the Zheng family's third lineage had been collecting resources from the coastal area of Indigo Azure City. However, they had not dared to really develop the coastal resources that they had collected. As a result, the first, second, and fourth bloodlines of the Zheng family were gradually being suppressed by the first, second, and fourth bloodlines. His son had asked Elder Nyo to make a move against the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's listen so that the three lineages could fully grasp Indigo Azure City's coastal resources as soon as possible. If it were him, he would probably do the same. However, Elder Nyo's death caused the three lineages to lose a Peak King stage powerhouse. Furthermore, Elder Nyo was a Peak King stage powerhouse who was adept at scouting. This ability was extremely useful for a faction. This kind of loss made Zheng Jiangliu's heart ache more than just losing a Peak King stage combatant. Zheng Jianglu glanced at his son, whose head was drooping on the ground, and snorted. Do you know the background of the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce? When Zheng Wenba heard his father's question, he shook his head and said. What background does the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce have? If it really had a background, would the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce have toyed with it? Online and offline resources were swallowed without any room to retaliate. Even though Zheng Wenba had thought all the way back to Indigo Azure City from the royal capital, he did not think that Elder Nyo had died in the hands of the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. Zheng Wenba vaguely remembered that the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce's Bai Qinghu and Bai Qingxiong had told him that the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce had spread the news that he had found a backer. However, Zheng Wenba felt that the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce was bluffing. Otherwise, Bai Qinghu and Bai Qingxiong would have long suffered, and it would not have been Elder Niu's turn. When Zheng Jianglu heard his son's words, he knew that his son had really done nothing on this trip to the royal capital. The Peking stage powerhouse accompanying him had died, but he did not even know who he had offended. This Elder Niu had really died unjustly. The Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's Listen has returned to Indigo Azure City from the royal capital. He is now in the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's old mansion. The person I sent to the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's old mansion 3 hours ago has yet to return. Listen is still alive and well. Zheng Jiangliu's words made Zheng Wenba's pupils constrict. In that case, Elder Niu had really died in the hands of the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. However, no matter how Zheng Wenba thought about it, he couldn't understand why the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's Listen had to endure the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce's trampling everywhere. However, all these facts were there, and Zheng Wenba had no choice but to believe it. The old man with his back ramrod straight suddenly said, "Master, why don't you let me test how deep the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce is?" As he spoke, the old man's cedar-like aura grew thicker. However, there was an indescribable sharpness hidden within this cedar-like aura. This sharpness was hidden in the cedar's aura, making it extremely difficult to distinguish. Zheng Jianglu hurriedly said, "Uncle Jiao, there's no need to trouble you with this matter. Your main Fei, the cold snow pine, is about to break through to Myth 2 and take human form. Don't let these trifling matters affect your cold snow pine's upcoming world cleansing." As Zheng Jianglu spoke, the malicious light in his eyes became even brighter. When the elder heard Zheng Jiangliu's words, he said, "Master, if we can't take down the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's coastal sea before the Dimensional Rift riot, I'm afraid we won't be able to explain to Second Young Master." When Zheng Jianglu heard the two words, Second Young Master, the malicious glint in his eyes revealed fear and calculation. Zheng Jianglu said in a deep voice, "Since Second Young Master wants to take half of the profits from the Third Ridge shallow coastal sea, I'm sure Second Young Master won't just stand by and watch when I'm in trouble." Lin Yuan was sitting side by side with Lu Jia in a unique guesthouse in Indigo Azure City. They ate the specialty seafood barbecue in Indigo Azure City's guesthouse. At that moment, a message notification came from his phone. Lin Yuan took a look at the phone and found that it was as he had expected. The Zheng family sent a king-class expert to assassinate Listen. There were less than 5 days before the Dimensional Rift riot period, and there wasn't much time left for Lin Yuan to explore the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's coastal sea. For Lin Yuan, the simplest way to explore the coastal sea controlled by the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce was to let Red Thorn spread out the sea of flowers in this coastal sea. The sea of flowers that Red Thorn's Ortet spread out underwater was equivalent to a part of Red Thorn's body. Lin Yuan could completely use Red Thorn's Sea of Flowers as his eyes to explore the coastal sea. Second, more recommendation votes and monthly votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 432. However, if he wanted to explore the secrets of this shallow nearshore sea through the sea of flowers that Red Thorn had spread underwater, he would need to do so. Before that, Red Thorn would no doubt need to devour more Goldwater World dimensional lifeforms' flesh. The ability to let the water element breathe was inherited from Red Thorn's mother Ramets to the child Ramets. It all depended on whether he could buy the Goldwater World dimensional lifeforms' flesh at tomorrow's Indigo Azure Sea Market. Lin Yuan was still looking forward to tomorrow's Indigo Azure Sea Market. Before going to bed, Lin Yuan needed to gather the resources he needed to use at the Indigo Azure Sea Market. Every Indigo Azure Sea Market was the accumulation of Indigo Azure City, a giant city by the sea, for 10 years. Therefore, if there were any precious phase or rare spiritual ingredients that were useful to Lin Yuan in this Indigo Azure Sea Market, it would be awkward if he could not take out the bargaining chips. At that moment, Lin Yuan found that Lu Jia, who was eating the charcoal grilled octopus balls, was frowning more and more. After chewing and swallowing the last octopus ball on the skewer, the corners of Lu Jia's mouth twitched without a trace, revealing a look of disgust. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan hurriedly asked, "Big brother Lu, is there a problem?" Lu Jia nodded at first and then shook his head. Then, Lin Yuan heard Lu Jia say, "The store added some kelp to these octopus balls. The shop added some kelp into the octopus balls. If the kelp is boiled in water and dipped in the sauce, it will be more delicious. However, in addition to the oil on the octopus balls, the store also added some lard, which adds some fishy smell to the freshness of the kelp. Moreover, the octopus tentacles in the octopus balls are cut into 2 small pieces, so they are not chewy at all. Also, in the honey sauce of the barbecue brush, the spotted bee's honey has obviously been added with water, resulting in the honey sauce's taste not mellow enough." Lu Jia said a bunch of things, and Lin Yuan listened in a daze. This specialty guesthouse was very famous in Indigo Azure City. The specialty seafood barbecue was the signature of this guesthouse. Lin Yuan ate the specialty barbecue in the guesthouse. Although it did not feel as delicious as the meat skewers in Lu Jia's mansion, it was still passable. Lu Jia was indeed a chef. He could find so many flaws in the octopus balls with just one taste. He really had a good tongue. At that moment, Lin Yuan noticed that the lady boss's hand, which was standing not far from his table and pouring the snow clam soup for the customers at another table, paused. Clearly, the lady boss had heard Lu Jia's words, and the warm smile on her face froze. Lin Yuan didn't think there was anything wrong with the taste of the octopus balls. However, after listening to Lu Jia's review, he carefully tasted the octopus balls. Instead, Lin Yuan tasted the lard in the octopus balls. Based on his experience of eating black-back mountain boars all year round, the lard in the octopus balls was obviously from the black-back mountain boar. Lin Yuan could not help but feel that the octopus balls tasted even more delicious. After eating the specialty barbecue in the guesthouse, the lady boss smiled with a hidden dagger in her smile. Lin Yuan and Lu Jia hurriedly soaked in the hostel's hot spring and hurriedly left the lady boss's sight. Inside the guesthouse, the lady boss squinted her eyes and smiled like a weasel. Lin Yuan could not help but think of a saying. Squinting eyes is either a big shot or a monster. Lin Yuan and Lu Jia returned to their respective rooms. After returning to his room, Lin Yuan entered his spirit lock spatial zone. As soon as he entered the spirit lock spatial zone, Lin Yuan felt that he was almost blinded by the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree's leaves. Nearly 600 leaves sealed with mid-grade strange flames glowed with resplendent flames. They illuminated the spirit lock spatial zone like an illusion that existed in the aurora. Chimey was sleeping on the bird's nest surrounded by the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree's leaves. The speed at which Chimey absorbed the energy in the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree's nest was obviously much faster than before. The energy transmitted by the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree dyed Chimey's azure blue feathers with a beautiful layer of extreme sky light. Gray was also sleeping on the cinnabar sweet osmanthus like Chimey. Apart from eating, it had been sleeping for almost the entire day. At that moment, there was no longer a trace of gray feathers on Gray's body. White feathers were attached to its wings, and there was a touch of vermilion on its head. This touch of vermilion was even more gorgeous than the cinnabar sweet osmanthus's flowers. However, this touch of vermilion was still very light and obviously had not fully developed. Lin Yuan could not help but sigh in his heart. Gray's genetic model and second development were almost at the end. The current gray ash already had a kind of graceful and fairy-like appearance, with a graceful temperament. I wonder what Gray will look like after its genetic model is fully developed. After sorting out his spirit lock spatial zone, Lin Yuan found that the precious resources he could take out were actually the completely jade-textured wood and the heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. He did not intend to trade out the source-type items that he had previously traded with them. He had previously given the completely jade-textured wood to Hu Quan in the mansion. It would still take a few days for the new batch of completely jade-textured wood to mature. Therefore, what Lin Yuan could spend at will now were the 2 large brocade boxes of fire-type heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls that he had collected recently. Lin Yuan stored these 2 large brocade boxes of heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls into his amber button-shaped diamond face storage box. Then, he took out 5 fays with good aptitudes that he had previously harvested in the depths of the endless forest from the diamond face storage box. In the Indigo Azure Sea market, most of the peddlers were spirit chi professionals living in Indigo Azure City. These spirit chi professionals lived with the sea, and flying fays and aquatic fays were the most precious to them. Lin Yuan had not harvested any aquatic fays in the endless forest, but he had harvested plenty of flying-type fays. The 5 flying fays that Lin Yuan took out happened to be 5 of the same species, the wind speech sparrows. Lin Yuan had saved these 5 wind speech sparrow chicks from the mouth of a giant tree breath venomous bird. Of course, when Lin Yuan had saved these 5 wind speech sparrow chicks, he had also harvested the giant tree breath venomous bird. When Lin Yuan rescued these 5 wind speech sparrow chicks, he found that they were obviously dying of hunger. This meant that the wind speech sparrow couple had not returned to the nest for at least 2 days. When the wind speech sparrows were nurturing their chicks, they would never leave the nest too far. This meant that the 2 adult wind speech sparrows had already become food for other predators while foraging for food. When these 5 wind speech sparrow chicks saw Lin Yuan, they immediately cheered and manipulated the wind element to simulate a human-like voice. Just like how Lin Yuan heard 5, "Hello, Daddy." When Lin Yuan heard these 5, "Hello, Daddy," he touched the 5 little fellows' little heads intimately and said, "Daddy will raise your grade and quality in a while. Daddy will raise your levels and grades in a while, and then I'll sell the 5 of you for a good price." First update. Seeking recommendation votes. Monthly votes. End of this chapter. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.